difficult, and Mr. Lynn is running late. Mrs. Greenhall, if you would like to take a moment to get a plate, we will, or something to drink.
I'm good.
Okay, we can't start without Dr. Wagner anyway, and she stepped out just for a moment. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Welcome everyone tonight. As I said earlier, Mr. Lynn was finishing up a meeting downtown and will be here just as soon as he can get up here. I want to welcome everyone to our work session for October. Looking forward to our discussion items tonight, including college and college readiness indicators, Navion's a CTE update, a bond planning update, and then at the end of our meeting we'll adjourn into closed session. So with that, Dr. Wagner, I'm going to turn it over to you. Our first item on our agenda tonight is the college readiness, college and career readiness update. Thank you.
We have given you a lot of materials, data intensive, about our college readiness indicators. You know, in the past we've had different presentations on college and career readiness, and a different presentation on Navion's, and a different presentation on CATE certifications and licenses. But this year, with our new priority goal, where we're targeting 3 hours, at least 3 hours college credit, and a license or certification for our students, we've combined those reports. And so we shared a lot of data earlier. It's got a lot of background information about ACT and SAT and AP and some of the other indicators that we have. Tonight we're going to share a PowerPoint which really takes a 30,000-foot look at some of the data that you have. And so with that said, I will turn it over to Mrs. Brandon. Right, Dr. Stone, anything that you would like to say before we get started?
No, I think all of us. Ms. Brandon?
Good evening, and actually I'm very fortunate that we will also have Ms. Hayes and Dr. Goodson that will be sharing the stage, so to speak, for us this evening. I first just want to begin by mentioning the importance of really identifying college and career readiness as a priority goal and what it really means for our kids. And for the sake of the room, to just kind of recalibrate what does it mean to be college and career ready. And really how the state defines it is a student who is ready for college and career, and they can qualify for and succeed in an entry-level credit-bearing college course leading to a baccalaureate or a certificate or a career pathway-oriented training program without the need for remedial or developmental coursework. And what we really attempt to do in Richardson ISD is to provide a myriad of opportunities for our students to really master the skills, the content, have the soft skills necessary to navigate that world. And tonight we're going to have an opportunity to share with you some progress that we're making in those indicators, as well as share with you our long-term plan for what we hope to do in order to accomplish the college and career readiness goal, where every student would graduate with 3 hours or a certificate or a certification or a license. And so to start with, I'd just like to highlight a little bit of celebration in the area of advanced placement, as well as I will identify some critical next steps that we are going to do in order to increase performance as well as participation. The first thing I want to celebrate is that we have 33 out of our 35 exams we had students take. And in RISD, we have 35 out of 38 potential AP courses offered. That provides a multitude of opportunities for a student to identify an area that they want to pursue that advanced placement, that more rigorous curriculum. It's also important to note that out of 5,221 AP exams, 58% of our students scored a 3 or higher, and compared to the state, which only scored at 44%. 93% of our students that are sitting in advanced in any of our AP courses last year, they actually took the AP exam. We're 1 percentage point away from the new goal that was established by our Board of Trustees, where 94% of our students will take an AP exam. We are very, very proud of that. And to know that we had 93% of our students take the exam, and they still scored, 58% of them scored 3 or higher, it really, truly is a testimony to the work of our teachers every day working with our students. Now, are we satisfied with that? No, we know we have a goal of minimum 60%, and we have some very strategic action steps in place, which I'll share in a moment. The other thing that I really want to celebrate is with the help of Mr. Fuller and our principals, We've really been messaging to our teachers the importance of ensuring that our students choosing to take advanced placement look like our students in the rest of the building. We want the demographic representation of our schools to mirror that in our AP courses. And so we've really been targeting how can we increase enrollment for our African American, our Hispanic students, and our low socioeconomic students. And you can see that for our African American students, we increased participation by 14% last year, and for our Hispanic students, we increased by 12%. So again, we're being very intentional and really beginning with 6th grade, and Dr. Goodson later on will share some specific things that we're doing to help our 6th graders understand the power of pre-AP and AP courses and increase that enrollment. Another huge celebration of our 2014-2015 school year was the introduction of our AP Student Ambassador Program. Every high school has identified a group of students who have participated, who have identified the benefits of an AP program. And beginning in elementary, they are making site visits to help students understand the power of taking a rigorous course load and get kids excited that it's something you can do. I can be an athlete. I can be in fine arts. I can march on the football field on Friday nights and still take AP courses and be successful. They help address some of the misconceptions that students have about it. It's just a ton more work. It's just about, it's about persevering instead of what really are the experiences in an AP course. And so that program, we think, has been a huge part of increasing our participation of our African American and Hispanic students. Now again, we know that there are still some areas of improvement. And if you will notice in the data that we provided to you, there are different pockets of excellence happening at each school. And you have different courses that may have exemplary performance in other areas that we're still trying to grow in their performance. And often there's a specific story that's attached to that. For example, it might be at a particular school we have a brand new teacher who's teaching AP for the first time. Or it might be at another school where we have a course where that teacher is trying to build that program from the beginning. For example, at one of our high schools, we had not had AP chemistry that had made for a number of years. And we had just a teacher that was vibrant and was absolutely committed to having that program make for the first time. And she ended up having 4 or 5 sections in her first year of teaching it. So her performance, we're still working to increase her performance, but the fact that she got that to make, we know we're going to see increased performance in the second year. AP Physics 1, you might have noticed that there was some areas in AP Physics 1 that we have growth. It was the first year that we took AP Physics 1. It was a new course offered by the College Board. It replaced Physics, AD, and as a result, our performance, while it indicated some low performance, it also mirrored that of the state and the nation. However, we have done deep analysis work with our teachers, with our assistant principals, and our principals. In 2 areas that we identified as an AP best practice that we have not previously implemented is one, we are going to be developing a scope and sequence for our AP courses. In all of our AP courses, really 9 through 12 and into our pre-AP courses at the junior high level. Previously, that had not been done for all courses, and teachers were somewhat left up to kind of deciding how that was going to work in their classroom. And while there's some autonomy into that, the challenge that we had is it's very difficult to support 4 courses happening across the district and knowing what resources they needed, knowing how well the students were doing, and if that teacher needed any additional professional development. To complement that, we are also going to begin using the curriculum benchmark assessments that we have in our grade level assessments. We're going to be implementing that at the pre-AP and AP level, because again, we want to be sure that are the students mastering the College Board standards as they are progressing through the curriculum. And this data will be used by the teachers to inform what's happening the next day in the next unit. What things do they need to spiral forward? What do we need to hold on our Super Saturday tutoring sessions? When groups and teams are coming together to work, it'll give them also something to focus on. In addition to that data analysis, we came across an amazing product called AP Insights. It's in its 3rd year of implementation. It had been piloted by several districts across the state in the past 2 years. And we have 3 courses that are going to be implementing it. It's AP Biology, AP Chemistry, and AP World History. And basically, Ms. Payne has shared information with the board regarding iStation. Well, this is a software support program, very much like iStation, but for AP courses. Students for each unit will take a pre-assessment, and then they will have customized tutorials that will be built in based upon how they performed on that unit assessment. On the areas that students really typically struggle in those 3 exams, it really targets developmentally how to prepare for the written portion, how to really master the multiple choice and the grittables, so that students really feel equipped both in test taking as well as in content for those exams. You might ask, why are we only implementing it for those 3? And that's because currently that's all the College Board has available. They are doing their due diligence and rolling them out course by course. They pilot them before they offer them to the rest of districts that have adopted AP.
Would you say those 3 things again?
Sure, AP Chemistry, AP Biology, and AP World History.
Is this something the students are doing on their own time or in class?
They're doing it in class, but then they will have access to it outside of the classroom as well. And Dr. Kuhn, the teachers have just begun receiving their accounts. And students will just start accessing AP Insight in the next kind of short couple of weeks.
Get ready, I'm gonna
Get
hear about
ready.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
Table.
That was a little just wink, wink. It's coming
I'll let
to
them
a
know
house
it's
near
coming.
you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. The other thing that we're very proud to announce is that we will be forming a consortium with some of our surrounding districts to share insights regarding things like an aligned curriculum, common assessments, as well as we are going to be able to host our own pre-AP conference. One of the things that's very difficult for our pre-AP teachers is to attend training that is meaningful, that is local. It's very expensive. And in this way, we will, if we can kind of combine forces, we can recruit the very best pre-AP teachers. We have control of that quality management piece. It's local, and it will cost a fraction of what we spend when we send them to College Board training, and it's kind of a little bit of a guessing game as to the quality that they're going to receive. Mr. Fuller and the other advanced academics directors in our surrounding districts are spearheading that effort, and we will be ready to launch that this summer. So teachers will really be able to go right to their backyard to receive a pre-AP training that we had an option to, and an opportunity to calibrate and focus their efforts. So very excited about that. And the last thing, and again, I could talk hours just about AP, but we have increased already this year. And this is, please note, this is after our pre-AP and AP drops. In AP alone, we have 5,835 AP course enrollments, which is significantly up from last year. So we feel very good about our opportunity to really have a diverse group of students taking a robust amount of courses, and we know that our participation and our performance will continue to climb.
Okay, that's it. We can do questions now, after each presentation, or at the very end. What feels good to you guys? If it feels okay, we can take them at the end.
I think that's,
It does. As the board chooses, we will.
do your question. Well, so to me, it's just clarification.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's just do them as we go.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the scope and sequence.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you help me understand
Absolutely.
how that's different than what it is right now? Maybe I'm not understanding all of that.
Absolutely. Right now, there are some courses that have a defined, basically, order of what should be taught first, what should come next, and what should be taught last, based upon what we know, how a curriculum would build, and how a student would develop an understanding of a content area.
Okay.
And right now, that is not true in every course across all AP courses. We have a few courses that have that, and we have many that do not. And so it's very hard for us to ensure that a brand new teacher coming in teaching AP for the first time, can we be sure that they have the resources that they would need to feel comfortable in teaching that course, and that they would know what is the best practice in teaching AP World History, what should I start, and how long should I spend on that? Where are kids gonna really struggle and that's gonna need more time? And what are other areas that a student is going to get through very quickly that I can accelerate that learning? And so we're gonna be sure that that is in place for all of our AP courses, for our teachers.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Allen?
I just was wondering if the, do you guys think about what I would call, for lack of a better term, core AP classes differently than you do other ones? I mean, we have some classes that are kind of in the core areas of chemistry and physics and English. Then we have some that are kind of
AP Computer Science.
right on the periphery. I mean, do you guys think about those differently, or?
We don't.
Okay.
Actually, we meet with every AP teacher out of campus at the beginning of the year. We share the goals that are established in the district improvement plan as well as in the campus improvement plan. We share specific action plans that they develop and goals that they develop individually for their course, and all AP courses are included in that.
Okay.
Now, things, for example, like the scope and sequence, that will be Myron Stennett will be responsible for working with the AP art teachers and developing a curriculum that makes sense in those areas, and it might look different.
Yeah.
And how we benchmark that might look very different because we're going to benchmark that by the products that they produce and by bringing those art teachers together and grading one another's art pieces. So that might look a little different than AP World History might, for example. But in terms of the priority that we place, we believe that they're all important. And for that student, that AP art class or AP computer science is
Right.
just as important for them as our AP language course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, so on this page of scores, this performance, is that percentage means the percentage of kids that made it 3, 4, 5?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So, I mean, one of the things that's kind of baffling to me is just looking at places where we have 3 or 4 schools that we have sort of consistent performance in a range of 5 to 8 points, and then you have one school that's an
Yes.
outlier that is really high, or most of them, of those that are really different, are really low.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we attribute that to the teacher, or, I mean, and how do we evaluate that, and what are we doing to really work or rescue those
That-
kids that are in that
Absolutely.
environment?
Well, I will tell you this really looking at this data and analyzing this data not over just 1 year, but over multiple years, that's what we would often find, is that you would have this anomaly of this 1 year where all of a sudden the scores were to drop. And one of the things that we struggled with is how do we ensure that we don't identify that too late when the students have already lost an entire semester before we realize it's a brand new teacher to AP wasn't provided the necessary resources they needed to be successful. And that is why we're making some of these changes with having a curriculum, something that a brand new teacher can look at and say, okay, now I at least have an idea of where I'm supposed to start and where I'm supposed to go next. And then having data sets along the way where a student can take a practice assessment and a teacher can get those grades, the student can get those grades, we can get those grades, so that if we notice at, let's say for example, the semester, they take the semester exam and we recognize that those students perform significantly lower than the other 3 schools, then our push and support, how we get our content directors, our curriculum specialists, our instructional coach, Mr. Fuller, to get in there and figure out, does that teacher need to go to a refresh training? Is it instructional strategies? If she doesn't understand the design of the assessment, then we can really target the support because we have the data that tells us what's going on. But in almost every situation, it's an anomaly of a teacher, either brand new, it might be a teacher that has 3 different AP courses, different preps, and making sure that they have enough time to feel comfortable with all 3 different assessments. And so that's when Mr. Fuller, myself, our executive directors work with the principal to look at scheduling. But what we want to do with these changes is catch them early before we're halfway through the year and we recognize that it's an issue.
You might also explain about how every teacher has an individual action plan.
Yes, so when We recognize for some of our subject areas, they're outperforming that 60% target, while we have others that is a little bit more of a stretch goal. So each teacher creates an action plan that is unique for them, that basically they start with analyzing last year's data. Whether or not they're a new teacher to that subject, they're looking at the performance of the kids that took the course last year, both at their campus as well as the district. Then they identify those strengths and weaknesses. Then they identify their goal, what professional development do they need, what supports do they need from the campus, what do they need from the district level. And then that's also where we will include their, how they perform on the common assessments throughout the year. And that is, every teacher has that in place this year.
And then, I mean, just to follow that up, then, I mean, you also see some trends by school too.
Absolutely.
Where you can see that in some cases, you know, they're not all the same, but it looks like that in this particular year that Bergner might have underperformed pretty heavily compared to some of the other campuses. And how do we address that, and what, do we have some sense of systemically why that would happen at a campus, and what are we doing to
Absolutely.
address that?
And we met with the campus administrative teams at each campus and really analyzed their staffing decisions, their master schedule, helped walk them through, you know, what is the significance if you have asked a teacher to teach 4 different courses? What kind of strain does that place, and which course is going to get the emphasis, et cetera. So we did a lot of intervention targeting each campus and specifically what the data indicated they needed for growth.
And I think that's why it's important we do break it apart, campus by campus, because we could bring you just a percentage overall, and a lot would get hidden in just a district-wide percentage, and I think that's why it's broken apart this way, so those individual conversations can happen at the campus level, and there could be discussions about accountability at the teacher level, at the campus level, driven by this data-driven decisions.
We also shared this data with our principals, and it also, and our assistant principals, and it also shared, it offered them, inspired them an opportunity to ask, what are you doing over there? And we are now seeing our AP teachers visiting other AP teachers at other campuses to find out, okay, what is the magic that's happening there? And to come find out it's not magic. There's some very specific research practices that are happening that teacher can then take back to their campus and figure out what's going on. We're also doing that outside of the district. There are some surrounding districts that have some, you know, really are knocking the socks off of some specific courses, and we're sending our teachers to go learn what are they doing. Is it the order of their curriculum? Is it the assessments they're using? That's how we found out about AP Insights. So learning from other districts as well.
Did you guys happen to break the data apart for the STEM Academy kids?
We did not. Not in terms of this report for this analysis.
Their physics and stats, though, look really small compared to
And we have, yes, we do have that data, yes, and we did provide that to those teachers. So they have their data by whether they're in STEM Berkner or if they're in what we affectionately call as Big Berkner.
So is it a future update you could give us, kind of just a sense of those trends? Like, I don't need it broken apart, but I'm just curious to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think you've answered my question, but my question was, the focus seems to be very much on new teachers and giving them
Yes,
tools, which is awesome, I would think, as a new
Yes.
teacher. But my question was, what about those teachers that have been effective as, and maybe been there a long time, and how are they impacted by all these changes as well? Partly, I guess, is this individual plan that you then mentioned.
Absolutely.
Is there?
Yeah, and I'll just give you a recent example. At our last district-wide day, we had all of our science AP teachers together in one room. And Ricardo and Mel facilitated that conversation. And really, it was 3 hours for them, both veteran and newbies, to those AP courses, to look at their data, to talk about those best practices. For our AP veteran teachers that have had success, to provide us with insight in terms of what things would work in a scope and sequence, what they would like to see. They helped actually design their upcoming common assessment. that they are then going to come back together as a team and they're going to commonly score it. So they can learn just through the process of scoring. We have several AP Science teachers that are actual graders for AP, and so they're going to come in and facilitate that learning for some of our teachers who have not had that opportunity. So we really try to rely upon our veteran teachers that are high performers to help guide us through and tell us what would make sense in that scope and sequence, what would a good common assessment look like. So we try to make sure that their voice is heard in the process.
I have one more follow-up question. So in our evaluation of the teachers themselves, as we go through the process that we have in place, does the student performance on these AP exams figure into their actual evaluation performance from a performance standpoint?
Currently in domain 8 it's not directly linked, but in general, student performance on a very general basis, it's not like within currently what's in the paper or what have you, value-added scores, not in that sense. But in terms of overall student performance as a part of domain 8 of PDAS, so the answer is yes.
And then under NIMSY, there's a real monetary benefit to it.
Yes, which we're about to have our NIMSY checks be distributed.
Excellent. So, and I guess that kind of begs a follow-up question, like, I don't have a sense of, do we have a greater than normal percentage of new teachers teaching AP? Is it, like, I know it's an ongoing conversation that it's hard to attract teachers who are qualified to teach AP and dual credit. Are we bumping up against that as we're trying to expand our offerings, or can you give us a sense of that?
Right now, we've been able to, every year it changes a little bit, I don't want to jinx ourselves, but we've been able to meet the demand of dual credit in AP.
Okay.
So that has not.
So you're not finding it's hard to recruit and attract necessarily?
Dual credit is separate from advanced placement.
Right.
I think part of where we are really working with our principals is just in their thought process of how they staff their courses. I think they are constantly pulled with these teachers, where they're going to have the most significant impact. And oftentimes it's this real pull between, am I going to place them with my on-level courses or even my remediation intervention courses, or am I going to place them in AP? Or if they present themselves as a strong AP teacher, sometimes they will end up giving them 3 or 4 different AP courses because they've experienced that success. And you're like, okay, they know what it looks like, we're going to give them 3 or 4. So a big part of this work is really helping our principals really think through that process, and that they don't create a situation where a teacher may choose, you know what, really where I want to be is with AP courses, and us not thinking that that's a bad thing, or I really want to teach on level kids because that's where my heart is, and that not being perceived as a negative either. So that's a big part of the work. I would say getting AP teachers is not a difficulty. It's in really determining who's going to teach what section.
Do you have more than normal first years this year?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yes.
And more so than anything for AP, it's about establishing a culture of expectations, that the teacher is establishing a syllabus that is aligned to the College Board standards for the course, and then delivering that so that the students will be successful on the test at the end of the course. That is just the imperative expectation that we are working to establish across the whole district in terms of the culture of our AP curriculum. So that is an ongoing conversation to make sure that the principals are holding that level of expectations on the campuses.
And the principals, they almost applauded when we talked about having data for AP courses that they could monitor throughout the year, because I think that is a struggle for them in identifying in October, do I have a teacher whose students are or are not on track for scoring at that proficient mastery level of the AP exam, and to have now common assessments where those principals are going to have data that tells them early on if intervention is needed. They were very thankful for that.
And that's new. So that will be a little bit of a challenge for our AP teachers to have that level of accountability come in, but it will provide a lot in terms of data for us to be able to have some accountability. So.
Well, and I just would like to follow up that as we begin to look for those ways for not only to hold our staff accountable, but from a performance standpoint, that this seems to me a targeted area where we ought to really be looking at some very strategic points on where they must really perform at. It's a leadership component, obviously, of the campus, which we're gonna have to hold the principals accountable for, but since this is a specific outcome of this program, I would hope that that is what we're looking at and from a performance standpoint.
Without it, we're only surprised sometimes whenever we get AP scores. We don't want to set up a situation where that's where we find out how the year went. There needs to be checkpoints along the way. That's what we built in.
And I do just want to message that there is a little bit of a challenge with AP scores and evaluation because we receive those scores often so late. So in terms of that typical cycle for determining raises and compensation and those type of thing, our AP scores often, we don't get those until midsummer. And so that is, not that it's one that we can't overcome, but that is right now a challenge that we have in that area. And Dr. Levina is well aware of that and working on what can you do about that.
So if I were to summarize or characterize this, because this has been an area that has been very important to me, as it is with all board members over my 8 years, is that as I look at your plan and I hear you describe it, then we've looked at putting the right teachers in the right classrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
We've enhanced our professional development. We've enhanced, including sharing best practices both within the district and seeking best practices outside the district. We have now put in place benchmarks that will allow us to catch performance issues early in the year and course correct if need be. I'm
Yes,
hearing
ma'am.
that we are going to,
Oh, absolutely.
okay, whatever that course
We will
correction
make
might
changes
be
based upon that.
during the course of the year. Paying close attention to the kids and then having the right instructional strategies and being data-driven in our decision-making and what we do.
The D and Thrive, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I've after reading this and hearing a lot of confidence in the direction that we're going and the fact that we are using data to drive our decisions and doing what's best for the kids and for the teachers to help them be successful. If there aren't any more questions, we will go ahead then and move to part 2, dual credit.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Brown.
And again, we've had an opportunity over the past several meetings to discuss the role of dual credit and some very strategic things that we are doing to expand dual credit. But first, celebrate last year's data. We had 1,475 total student enrollments. And that includes students who took either an AP overlay course, took a 0-hour course on one of our campuses, or the few students who may have taken a Richland course at their campus. Total, our students earned 4,425 dual credit hours, totaling a savings of over $261,000. And so I think that's always a huge benefit that we need to remind our parents that if a student can successfui pass a dual credit course, that is money in their, in their pocket, so to speak. While we, also I wanted to note that Ms. Hayes and Mr. Stotts added 21 courses for dual credit in the area of CTE as well. So we enhanced and enriched our academic as well as our CTE course enrollments. Some specific things that we're doing in the area of expansion. First, I want to mention that we are very thankful that the legislative session really provided some flexibility for local school districts to increase students' opportunity to take dual credit courses beginning at an early age, providing us flexibility in terms of how we count those courses for ADA, and some other areas that really have just opened the doors for us in our ISD to increase these opportunities. We will begin our expansion by assessing all of our sophomores this year in the spring on the TSI, which is basically the admittance exam that a college needs to have to say this student has the necessary skills, the prerequisite skills to be successful in the dual credit courses that they enroll in.
Are you writing ed math or are you staggering that in?
We are working on the implementation plan as we speak. It will be individual per campus based upon the number of devices they have. It has to be a computer lab setting. There has to be a video that every student watches beforehand. They have to complete it in one sitting, and it's individual for each student.
I've actually taken it.
Yes.
I know
So
what you're talking
yes.
about.
So that would be. We will have to do that based upon the principal input. Of course, teachers are fearful of losing instructional time, so we're working with the principals to develop that implementation plan to be ready beginning in January.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But that, also it's important to note, we will not, there will be some students who can use a substitute exam, such as a PSAT score or an EOC score, and they would not then have to double test on the TSI. So we will only test those students who are required to. We're being very thoughtful about, making sure our students don't have to test if they don't need to. The other thing that we will be doing in terms of looking at dual credit expansion, and this is important to note, this is going to feed into the conversation we have later about this being a priority goal and every student earning the 3 hours. But we will be bringing a proposal, and the first draft of that will be coming to the board in the November 16th meeting. But we are going to be generating a proposal that we could look at calculating dual credit into a student's grade point average, as well as dual credit courses earning quality points. This is something that is common in most of our surrounding districts. It is an incentive for students. They're taking a college course. It is a rigorous course. If they pass that course, they are earning 3 hours, which is the equivalent of what they would do in an AP course. If they score a 3 or higher, they earn that 3-hour college course as well. And we believe that that should calculate into a student's GPA, and that students should be awarded quality points for taking that rigorous course. So a draft proposal is something that will be coming to the Board of Trustees for your review. We met again last week with Richland. We are becoming fast friends and continue to be excited to look at how creative they are being and how dedicated they are to opening their 4 walls of Richland to our students. We have a very comprehensive course catalog that will be going into our program of studies for every student, in which really any course that you can imagine that Richland offers, our students will be able to take. And they will either be able to take them as a dual credit course or for concurrent enrollment. If they take it for concurrent enrollment, the vice president is actually putting a proposal to send to her president where our concurrent enrollment courses, where a student would not have to pay the registration fee for even a concurrent enrollment course. That is how dedicated they are to really involving our students over at Richland College. So that is not, we're just in a proposal phase for that, but I think it's evidence of their commitment to our partnership.
Give me an example of what you mean by concurrent enrollment that's different than.
Absolutely. So a dual credit course is a course that Richland offers it, and we offer it, and we can say, you know what, this very much aligns to our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, therefore we can give them credit on their high school transcript and college.
Right.
A concurrent enrollment course might be something that they are offering in the area. It might even be a specific math course, or it might be a specific art history course. And really there's no alignment in there's nothing I could give them a high school credit for. So we would call that a concurrent enrollment. They're gonna get the college credit for it, but I have nothing on my high school side that I can say, yes, that's a Texas approved high school course. Does that make sense?
So they're just taking it in advance of, for learning
Absolutely.
the content and in advance of moving on to that post-secondary work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They recognize that it's something that's going to benefit them. Maybe there's not an elective course, especially if they move into that junior and senior year. And remember, next year our seniors have to take 7 out of 7. And so there might not be something in the catalog that meets their needs on campus. And so I can go over to Richland and take something specifically in my area. It also might sometimes be that level 3 or level 4 course that we can't offer because of low enrollment, but they would be able to take over there.
So do we give them credit as an elective, or it really doesn't count
It
at all
doesn't.
toward their high school?
It doesn't count at all towards their high school.
Okay.
It would not appear on their transcript.
Okay.
It appears on their schedule because we show that they're at Richland, but it's not recorded on their high school transcript. It gets on their college transcript, but not on the high school transcript.
But because we require them to have 28 class periods
Yes,
over the
ma'am.
course of 9 through 12, that exceeds the number of high school credits, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So they'll have flexibility
Oh,
to start
absolutely.
their college work.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And again, just to reiterate, our students will be able to take these dual credit and concurrent enrollment courses in a variety of settings, including on-site at our campuses by our dual credit certified teachers, by our CTE certified teachers, virtually through a blended format. Several of the professors, when they have learned about our work, have agreed to meet with our students 1 day a week, face-to-face. And a proposal is being developed right now that will go to Dr. Wagner and Mr. Parker Road and Dr. Stone to look at transportation in a morning block and in an afternoon block from all 4 high schools to Richland Collegiate, to Richland College, as to ensure that transportation economics does not play into whether or not a student can take that course.
That's great.
And then finally, the last thing I just wanted to mention is that we are going to be also adopting the UT On-Ramps courses, which provides a student both core courses as well as some elective courses. They will, it's dual taught by a RISD teacher. What's important about that RISD teacher is they do not have to be dual credit certified, so to speak. They don't have to have a master's in their curriculum area. Because they are really facilitating the high school portion of the course, while the UT professor is facilitating the college level course. It will have training opportunities, professional development on what does it mean to facilitate a hybrid course. And UT will provide that training for us. And at the end, our students will earn a UT transcript. It is important to note these courses are at a cost. And so a student choosing to take this course, it would be at their families, the students' charge. Again, it's roughly $300 for a 3-hour course, which at UT rates is pretty nominal. But for many of our students and our parents, these are going to be courses that are going to really interest them. Ms. Hayes, would you like to add anything about CTE dual credit?
Yes, if you'll go to the next
I'm
slide.
heading that way.
First off, I have to make a big apology that added, it should be 21, not 15. I got my school year and courses, that was already part of Mrs. Brandon's presentation early on, so it should be 21 courses added to dual credit. There's a chart that matches, so my apologies for that. I won't let it happen again.
We like when you go up.
Well, it's a good thing. We are targeting advanced classes, as you know, part of the CTE strategic plan, as that dual credit expansion happened over the 5-year period that we're talking about, and to target advanced courses for our dual credits. And so that is what we are doing. We're adding advanced courses where possible. We have 15 of 16 federal clusters that have advanced courses offered in our program of studies. The government and public administration is the one that does not. That is part of the law magnet at Richardson High School, and that course is a mid-level course there. It is not a CTE advanced course in that law magnet. All the remaining ones have advanced courses, and of course we are continuing to credential our teachers for CTE credentialing. It also includes work experience, which is not part of academic, which can sometimes, if the teacher comes straight out of college and goes into CTE and does not have any work experience, then that becomes an issue for dual credit for the CTE side. So, working hand in hand with Mrs. Branham and Mr. Fuller on dual credit. Mr. Stock, we meet with Richland as well, and continue to build those programs.
Susan, can you, again, just a clarifying question. I know we've talked about our focus areas. I'm going to forget if there's 4 or 5.
There is 4 cluster sets
4 clusters.
with 7 different federal clusters involved.
Okay.
Would you want me to go over those?
No.
Okay.
But we know we're focusing on those 4, but we continue to go across all 16 federal clusters
Because we offer those across the district, and there is expansion and growth opportunities for jobs in all of those.
Okay, so why would we, like, I guess help me map the focus areas. I thought it was a funding thing.
There's
Let's
no,
put that out.
there's not funding specific to certain clusters. Is that what you're asking?
So, do we have to offer all 16 to get our money
No.
from Perkins?
You do not.
No, and I think, I hear what you're saying, but I think it would be a step backwards in terms of opportunities for kids to reduce the clusters simply, or to reduce the courses only for those clusters. Because we have, numerous courses, and kids have the ability to take them and be exposed to different areas. They don't all come with credentials or certification. I mean, we are focusing on those target areas, but offering courses within all of those clusters, and it is not a monetary issue.
Got it, thank you.
There's individual growth opportunities or experiencing. Someone might not choose to take that pathway as a certification, but still might be able to make some ongoing decisions about what their life career looks like and things they want to take in college by having had that exploration opportunity to take those one-off courses.
I guess I'm just, in my mind, I'm trying to balance the do a few things well versus trying to do everything for everybody. And so that was where my question was coming from, and I thought that there was another motivation for it.
So the growth in the 4 priority cluster sets is based on the strategic plan and the data analysis
Right.
for job potential. That is where funding is tied as far as our recommendations for facility changes. It's just for those priority areas.
Okay.
We already have existing facilities and we are not asking for any additions to the facilities for the remaining clusters. Is that, yep.
Other dual credit? Lynette, go ahead.
Good.
Help me if you would on advanced course. I'm trying to figure out what an advanced course
That's the
means.
last level of a course sequence, so that will typically be your juniors and seniors.
Okay.
And so once they're finished their sequence, the advanced class is where we want the dual credit, and we want the articulations to be, and that's where they will earn their certification or license typically.
So the goal is for advanced to equal dual credit.
Yes.
Today that isn't the
That is
case.
correct.
Advanced in our world means a junior or senior level.
Right.
Go ahead.
Can a student pass our course for credit purposes but not receive the credit at the collegiate level? Is there something that can happen to a student from a performance standpoint?
Absolutely. If a student, for example, they were taking, let's just say English 1301 and they made a D. In that circumstance, it might be that they would still get our credit because of how that grade is transferred to us, but they may not earn the 3 hours of the dual credit on the college side. So there are some instances where, and it might be it might be the reverse, where they would earn the credit on the college side, but potentially not earn it on the high school side because of certain, how the numbers play out. I would say it's very, very rare, but it could happen.
So that was my follow-up question then, was we obviously are tracking the number of savings and the number of classes that our kids take and move forward. Are we keeping track of those places where we are not, for whatever reason, the kids are not successful in not earning that actual dual credit, and making sure that we don't have patterns or issues that we need to address into that umbrella?
Great question. Currently, because the majority of our students are taking it through the AP overlay, we are aware that those students are struggling somewhat. Again, we didn't have those common assessments and benchmarks to know early enough and to be able to intervene. And then truly how you support a student who's struggling in AP is sometimes a little bit different than supporting a student truly in dual credit. So Ms. Greenhawt, as we've been having the conversations with Richland, that has been an integral part of thinking about this expansion. Because we know that we're gonna have to support students in understanding, how do I navigate just the collegiate physical environment? How do I know where the writing lab is? How do I set up, I don't just hang out after class and talk to my professor and get them to, can I reassess or can I resubmit my essay? I schedule an appointment, and here's how I find out the professor's appointment times. How do I register for a college course? Actually, we're gonna have them go to Richland and register in the registrar's office so they can see those differences. But what's important about that is we will be there with them. The college and career readiness counselors, our high school counselors will be there to guide our students and, to be whispering in their ear what that needs to look like. Richland has also identified a space that we will be able to provide. For example, it might be an AVID teacher or some other instructor that while our students are on campus in that morning or PM block, we would have someone there where if a student is struggling with, okay, I don't have class on Tuesday, Thursdays, what do I do during this time? Okay, well, let's talk about how do you look at your syllabus, how do you look, okay, your professor said chapters 1 and 2, you need to have those read and have notes ready to go with a quiz. How do you break that apart and chunk that, and how do you use your Tuesday, Thursdays to prepare for that? So providing students some of those teach pieces that are not explicit to the content are embedded in this plan.
Well, and I just want to say I'm thrilled to hear all the progress. You guys have been really moving the ball along, so thank you. I mean, this is awesome to realize that this is all going to come along for our students and their families.
a couple of reflections for y'all, just because, this is complicated for parents to navigate.
Yes.
And to understand that if my child chooses to go to a private school, but I've got dual credit and I don't have AP, will they not get credit? And I think there's one more piece of this, that I would caution you from some of my own professional experiences, and that is, that you can start racking up dual credit that doesn't take you anywhere, and it starts eating into your financial eligibility.
Yes.
In a way that keeps you from being able to actually finish a degree later.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to make sure that we're giving parents all the information that they need to help their student navigate through some of this stuff. Because I mean, concurrent classes all sound fun, but if they're not getting you to your associates or getting you to a bachelor's degree somewhere, you've just burned up.
Absolutely. And Richland is committed to working with our counselors that when our students create their 6-year plan, that part of that will be, around that sophomore year when they might start taking dual credit courses, that they would actually be working on that, that 15th and 16th year, and beginning to plan that out. What are you interested in? Where do you think you're going to transfer in-house versus out of state? And I think that's also important in terms of deciding, should I take it through AP? Or should I take it through dual credit? Because that will be a pull that I know our parents and students will feel as well. And so letting them know, okay, well, if you think that these are the 5 colleges that you want to go to, you actually have to research, and the college will let you know whether or not a dual credit will transfer, whether or not AP will transfer. Sometimes it might be neither. So which experience is going to prepare you for the rigor that you're going to experience when you enroll in that university. The same thing with our licensing and our certification programs, ensuring that the courses that they're taking are actually leading. Otherwise, they can have a bunch of courses, but it's not going to lead to something that is going to earn them that wage that we know that they need to be self-sustaining.
So it sounds like you guys are on a path of kind of creating tools and communication processes for parents as well, resources for parents?
Absolutely, and when we wrap up with the priority goal, there is an entire marketing plan that we have developed just for this area. It'll include an infomercial for parents and for students. The dual credit component, while it'll be embedded in the program of studies, it's going to be its own catalog for parents. Where the first section is just going to walk them through how do you navigate a community college experience, and this is what counts and what doesn't, and this is how a 2-year program can lead to a 4-year program. For Richland, part of their accountability is that transferability, and they want what frequently asked questions. All of that will be a part of what parents will get in that separate catalog, so to speak.
Great, thank you. We need it.
Any questions on dual credit? Let's move on to SAT, ACT.
I want to take us back and just remind us that lots of different indicators that we're looking at to ensure that our students are college and career ready, that they can navigate that world without needing those remedial courses. We know we still have tremendous work to do with the SAT and the ACT. We know we are we're in our 3rd year of implementing the ACT for all 11th graders. The class of 2015 and Elvia, when we looked at these numbers, this should say actually 24% of our students scored at the college ready percentile on all 4 subjects. We reran those numbers. It was 24, I'm sorry. It helps if I click. Apologize for our viewing audience. What we do think is a huge celebration is that this year we had 638 students take the ACT for a second time. That's an increase of 253 students from the prior year. So 253 more kids took the ACT a second time, and we believe that a lot of that has to do with giving it to all and students feeling the confidence and looking at their score report, attending Saturday school tutoring programs. Might be some other things that they're doing where they're like, I can knock the socks of that. And in that, those students who take it a second time, 39, so it jumps from 24% to 39% of our students score at that CRB percentage on all 4 subjects. It's right in your executive summary. It's not on this PowerPoint. I don't know what happened there. I think the most important tool that we found this year was our ACT's 20 non-negotiables of higher performing school districts. And this is a publication that ACT developed that really identifies when students really score well on the ACT, what is it that the district is doing that systemically has all students performing at a high level. And there are some really profound things that we took from that. One thing, for example, is they really look at the ACT curriculum and those standards, and they find the overlap into courses like English 3. There is a tremendous alignment between ACT's English standards and what happens in English 3. And they make that explicit for the teachers. So the teachers understand that yes, in English 3, we call these things this, but on the ACT, the vocabulary shifts, and this is the vocabulary that they use in the ACT. So making sure every teacher is aware of that, every teacher teaching English 3 is aware of that, that's built into the curriculum, so that they're sharing that with the students, we think is going to be instrumental in helping improve our overall performance. Similar things, for example, in Algebra 2. The Algebra 2 that is tested in the ACT is pretty much our Algebra 2. And so with some explicit conversations about this is how it looks and this is how it's tested on the ACT, we had all of our math teachers at district-wide day take an ACT. They took a released ACT. They had not done that. They had not really seen what does the structure look like? What does it feel like to be a student being timed? How important is it for me to have fluency in my math facts as well as calculator fluency? So that way I can get through those test items in a very condensed amount of time. And so all of those things are things that we are really learning from other districts that are doing this well. There's Phoenix Unified District, La Jolla. There's some places that are really doing some phenomenal things with ACT performance, and we are learning from those, and we are employing those here. In addition, SAT, while we do not test all of our students in the SAT, we do test all of our 10th graders in the PSAT. We do identify that as one of our national merit pipeline endeavors. We continue to identify our Duke Tip scholars, and then really focus some intense instruction in after school and tutoring programs with those students, bless you, to try to increase the number of national merit finalists. And of our students who choose self-select to take the SAT, our average scores in critical reading and mathematics have consistently exceeded the state and the nation over the last 4 years. While we know that there are still, some areas that we have to grow in that area, we're still having some pretty consistent performance on the SAT. The SAT, in terms of how to embed that in the curriculum, is a little bit different than the ACT. The ACT is based upon a curriculum alignment, whereas the SAT is more measuring aptitude. So how you prepare a student for the SAT is a little bit different than the ACT, and because we're not having every student take the SAT, we're not as explicit with preparing students for that assessment by itself as we are with the ACT, if that makes any sense. And if I need to repeat that, I can.
Isn't the SAT changing though? Am I misinterpreting?
Like, completely. Our students that just took what we typically would call the PSAT,
Right.
it was a completely different test than what we've ever seen before.
Waterfalls and cookies.
It completely. And to even try to prepare our students for that, they have not, College Board has given us really nothing in terms of what we could do to prepare our students for the PSAT nor the SAT. So it is a completely brand new assessment.
But morphing to be more aligned with our curriculum the way the ACT is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We just have not been able to really see that yet and see what kind of work could we do with the curriculum to bring that into closer alignment, because it's so brand new.
Question?
I just can't remember, but can somebody remind me what our goals were for the ACT?
For ACT, our goal is 25% of our students will score at that college readiness benchmark in
Okay.
all 4 subject areas. So we have a 1 percentage point
Okay.
goal that we need to attack.
I'm looking ahead a little bit, but
Sure.
I'll pull this out of my kind of career view. So can you help me or somebody help me understand? I mean, obviously we have that 24% at college ready. I think our highest score on any given subject is like 44%, yet what, 63% of our kids are enrolled at a four-year university. So can somebody help me understand that disconnect? I mean, obviously, the colleges are admitting our kids based on their SAT and ACT scores, yet there's this wide gap that exists.
Absolutely. The college readiness benchmark basically demonstrates that a student has the propensity to be extremely successful in a college environment without any remediation or instructional support programs. So if a student scores at a college readiness benchmark in any one subject area or all four, that is basically a message to the student, to the parent, and to the college that they can take a freshman level load of courses and not need any additional remediation or support. So absolutely, are they still admitting our students even if they don't hit that benchmark? Absolutely. And are students still successful in courses? Oftentimes they are. Sometimes, however, our students may need additional remediation. They may need to take a course that, it might be a critical reading course or a writing course to prepare them to be successful in that English 1301 or 1302.
I think it's if I remember I read about it one time, but I think that college readiness is like high probability of good success, like not just
the
passing, but
likelihood of
like,
them being successful in that course for that reading
it's
area.
like B or better.
Through like sophomore year,
Yeah.
it's into the
So that's a
composition of
that's a much higher standard than
It
just the
is.
composite score. So I think that's the reason for the disconnect.
The composite score basically says a student has a minimum amount of skills and content needed to be successful, where the college readiness indicator says this student is college ready.
Right.
There's a little slight difference in the way that they interpret that.
And I guess if I'm looking at the numbers though, I mean, that would suggest that 2/3 of our kids that are going to four-year colleges are, they.
Not just our kids, but I mean, the
Everybody's
nationwide
kids, yeah.
college ready percentage is what?
They would need remediation, which I don't know that we, I don't know that we believe.
The national ACT average is 28. It's 28% remediation.
Yeah, remember on ACT, we tested 99% of last year's students.
Yeah.
Kids, and our percentage of going to college during the first year has been about 70. We dropped a little bit below that this year in the high 60s. So everybody who takes that ACT, we want all of our kids to have ownership on that and want to do well. And our kids who absolutely know their college bound are applying themselves. We've got skilled kids that are taking that exam that probably aren't doing as well as they could because they don't intend to go to college. So that impacts our college readiness benchmark because we're testing all kids.
I agree with you though, because I think I've always had this problem with the ACT college readiness benchmark because I mean, if you're a suspicious person, you think they are doing that because guess what? Then you need services to help get that higher.
So
So
you need to take dust again.
right, I mean, because it's like, I mean, the national average is 28%. So, I mean, but, if you look at their information, it says it's empirically based, based on actual college student performance. But I've always had that kind of same suspicion you do. That it just seems like a huge disconnect between college admissions and the college ready benchmark.
So let me ask this question, maybe this is a better way to say it. I mean, do we have data from the National Clearinghouse or whoever that shows us how many of our kids are following through, that are going in, that are following through to a four-year degree? What's that?
Do you want to, are there any other questions about ACT? Or can we
Yeah, we're getting there.
I do have one, but
Yes, ma'am.
and Dr. Wagner just mentioned it, that we knew going into the fact of increasing and giving the test to all kids that the numbers would drop just from a percentage standpoint.
Yes, ma'am.
But now we've done that for 3 years, so when does that, when can we no longer use that as a
Absolutely.
excuse, or I don't mean that negatively.
No,
When can we no longer say, at what
We
point do
agree.
we reach where it has to start going back up?
That, and I'll tell you, Ms. Greenhall, that was really what Mr. Fuller and I spent several conversations and lots of time identifying, and really members of our curriculum team, figuring out what is it now that we need to do. We have this assessment, we have this goal, what do we need to do to make sure that kids have the skills and are ready to take that assessment and be successful. And that's where we really found the ACT, those 20 non-negotiables, when they basically tell us, here's some things you can do to make sure that your students are prepared for that. One of the things is have every teacher that take the ACT themselves. Because part of the strategy behind having student success is teaching the students the structure of the test. They need to know how many sections it is. They need to know its time. They need to have, math teachers need to provide calculator fluency tests so that students can work with ease and with speed on the calculator as well as breaking. So some of those things that we just stopped and researched and found out, okay, there are some districts around that are doing this and they're doing it well. What can we learn from them? And as we had conversations, curriculum, embed those standards in the curriculum. Let the teachers see the alignment between what's happening in the state curriculum and what's happening on the ACT curriculum. Support teachers in understanding how the test is graded. So really, those things have all been embedded. And again, as I mentioned, the district-wide day, I mean, we are implementing those things right now.
One other thing that I will mention too is that we're targeting it from the elementary level. And, when we implemented the career and college readiness at the elementary level, we talked about building that dream and that hope for kids who may not necessarily have a conversation at dinner with parents about where you go in school. So we are really doing that with our work with the clusters at the elementary level. We tied those to colleges and careers. And I don't know if Mrs. Hunt is in here, but has done a fabulous job of bringing our elementary kiddos up to junior high, into high school, and building that college culture all the way up so that as kids move through our system, if they're not getting that support elsewhere, they are getting it at school and hearing that conversation at school. And so we're targeting it secondary and elementary. Because hopefully, at some point, we're going to have
it's just, at some point, we
fantastic
have to stop
results.
saying that they're at this level because we have some kids.
No,
And
but
I don't-
that's a factor, though.
It
It's
is,
a factor.
but it can't be our overriding factor in terms of success.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what we realized is that we have to be very intentional. Our scores aren't going to just improve by chance. We have to be intentional with what support do we provide to teachers, how do we communicate with students, how do we prepare them for the assessment, just like we would any other assessment. We would not expect them to just go take, a star, C without having explicit instruction in how the writing or how the short answer is developed and how it's scored. And we need to do the same thing for ACT. If we're gonna place this kind of investment both fiscally as well as in our human resources, then we need to be ensure that we have the systems behind it to support it.
One bragging right that Mrs. Brown may have mentioned, but I'm not sure she did, is even though we tested 99% of kids on ACT, we were still above the nation in math. That's a huge celebration.
Yes. We did. We had, we are there and we will continue, I promise you, to get there. Okay, speaking of National Clearinghouse, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
What are you gonna do with that? Which are awesome, by the way. I love how these are laid out, so thank you for that. I don't understand how to interpret this thing. I think it's a percent of all the test takers and what ethnic categories they fall into.
Is that SAT?
Yes, ma'am.
It's the same chart of
I printed some.
Which one? I'm sorry.
printed
This chart right
the,
here on the
agenda
SAT
on
by
the
ethnic group.
website.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so on the one where we are testing 100% of our kids on ACT, those percentages will mirror our demographics for the district. But the one on the SAT is an opt-in, which is why there's such disparity
Yes,
across
ma'am.
the country.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes, the SAT is by choice.
yes.
And so we're reporting the students who chose to take the SAT.
So, Ms. Brown, before we leave the academic area, because we've talked about AP, we've talked about dual credit, we've talked about SAT and ACT, which really encompasses not just what the students are doing in 9 through 12, but it truly is a holistic K through 12 experience. Dr. Stone, I'm going to ask you to come back because last month we had a presentation on instructional strategies, And obviously, good instruction is what provides a foundation. Can you review just for the board again briefly the instructional strategies that you have for this year? I think the acronym was DRIVE.
Sorry.
She gets choked up just thinking about it.
The D is data-driven decisions, rigorous and relevant curriculum. I is innovative and individualized instruction, and invaluable professional development and an effective leadership. So really everything that we've been talking about through all of these pieces and parts, I think you'll see different anchor pieces that we've been talking about. Obviously, every one of these that we've been talking about so far, data, everything is driven by data in terms of our continuous improvement and being able to constantly look at those data pieces. Where are we going? How can we get better? How can we continuously be improving based on our data? And then the rigorous and relevant curriculum, ensuring from AP to SAT to ACT that we have a curriculum in place that's preparing the students to be successful on that end result, which is the test. Individualizing and innovative instruction, ensuring that we're meeting every single student where they are, individualizing the instruction to be what they need, and innovative definitely is a big piece of that. Then for valuable professional development, ensuring that we're training our teachers and equipping our teachers with all of those pieces and parts in terms of the professional development so that they feel equipped to, teach the courses, be it the AP courses, going to the College Board training, getting that professional development from our staff. And then effective leadership is so important in all the pieces and parts of that, because that's where the accountability comes in, the monitoring, setting the expectations at the campus to have the culture is all a piece of that. So everything that we've been talking about is really, you can see, anchored in those expectations.
And I have to share some positive feedback because, and give kudos to Dr. Medina and Dr. Stone as well as Mrs. Brown and Dr. Gibson. I've been meeting with principals. I did that beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year, and I've met with all principals except the high school group. They're coming up. But all of them have mentioned the significance of the acronym DRIVE as it relates to what we've been doing this year. And actually, our last session on McCrell leadership, Dr. Stone played a large role in actually bringing our data to the group. And our principals, just a feedback that I'm getting on that opportunity to do that, because the conversation was about effective leadership. But they said, from principals' words, it is absolutely relevant, it's meaningful, that everything is tying together all the way from the district improvement plan to the priority goals, to the student performance goals, to goals within their campus plans. Most of them are focusing on the data. They had to pick basically a priority goal out of that area. The I is also big with the individualization that we're doing with differentiation. There's a huge focus on data and doing it very purposefully, using the same vocabulary. So if you remember when we rolled this out, we talked about a purpose and community, where we're talking the same language and have generic and unified expectations across the board. The feedback has been powerful from principals. And so that's just a reflection on our leadership team and the willingness of our trainer to actually let us bring our data into that training and make it relevant versus, it's wonderful data, but it was far more meaningful in that we made it about Richardson ISD, and we made it about investing in our leaders and enhancing everyone's capacity. So it's been great feedback.
That's great.
The other piece of that is last week we met the curriculum.
I didn't see Mrs. Payne back
Hey,
here.
Mrs.
She's
Payne
also
back
in
here,
school
but
as well.
that rigorous and relevant curriculum. We spent a couple of hours with all of our content, our directory team for all of the curriculum areas. Went over DRIVE, we looked at 4 years of data, the last 4 years of data, and the trend of that, and really talked about the curriculum aspect of that. Everything goes back to just a strong, rigorous curriculum for our students, and so we talked about that. Had a great conversation with the curriculum directors and brought them on board. So we really, I think now we have everybody on board driving in the same direction.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the academic foundation, so Ms. Branham will move to.
Sure. Well, and just
some
very
topics.
quickly, I know Mr. Bono mentioned the National Clearinghouse, and I'll go ahead and touch on that piece because it kind of supports what Mr. Bono was mentioning. Again, just, you know, it's exciting to see that 67.6% of our students from the class of 2014 were enrolled in college a year after graduation. Of that 67.6%, 63.5% were enrolled in a four-year university, which is up from 57.2%. So again, we're seeing a high, many of our students that are enrolling in a post-secondary education. Our college and career counselors are continuing to increase our students' knowledge and understanding of the college application process for FAFSA. We're actually partnering again with Commit, and on February 20th at Lake Highlands, we are going to be having our Super Saturday, and efforts are going to be rolled out soon to get as many of our students there as possible. Currently, our goal is to get at least 50% of our students registered in FAFSA. Currently, we're at about 44% of our students that are in FAFSA. So we still have a little ways to go for that goal, but we are excited about that. I will provide an update to the Board of Trustees this week regarding, Mr. Bono asked for our completion rate of our students once they're in college, how many of them actually earn that degree, and we will send that, we can send it by campus for the Board of Trustees update as well.
Can you include the sophomore persistence rates as well?
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
Can you also speak to the year-on-year trend for this? Like, I appreciate that the class of 2014 was 67.6%, but is that up year-on-year? Is that flat?
We actually had a slight decrease from the previous year. We were at 71% the prior year, and we saw a slight decline. However, again, we did see an increase in the number of students registering for a four-year university versus the year before. So, absolutely saw a little bit of a decline there, and are really working to figure out why that decline happened and what we need to do to increase that. Our college and career counselors keep messaging to us that FAFSA, the application process, continues to sometimes overwhelm our students. And especially some of our students that are in our underrepresented populations, and our students that are served through our economically disadvantaged programs, that continues to be a barrier. And so really targeting and working with those students to eliminate that barrier and support them all the way through from the beginning of the application to the end. I also want to mention that we have embedded the 4 Common App essays into the English 4 curriculum. And we're making that as a part of the summer assignment. So students, normally they'll read some books over the summer, and then they'll come back in the beginning of the year and they'll talk about them and discuss them and all that good stuff. Well, instead we're going to have them write. So they're going to begin those essay writing pieces over the summer, so immediately those teachers can have those turned in, and they can get immediate prescriptive feedback on what we need to do to improve those essays, so that they can submit that as part of Naviance and as part of the Common App.
Those prompts come out before the summer?
We have some general trends. I mean, we pretty much know.
Got it. There's some, yeah, got it.
We analyze. We are D and data driven. We've analyzed our longitudinal data.
Ms. Branham, the 60 percentages there, the 63.5% that was enrolled, is that a percentage of a percentage, or
Yeah.
is that the percentage? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's not. Yes. So
So is that really 49.2?
correct.
Or
Yes, sir.
or 42?
Of our overall
So
student
that's-
population, it would be less than half
Gotcha.
Okay.
are enrolled in a 4-year. If you, yes.
It's broken apart, 4-year, 2-year, public, private university.
I would really, I think it would be really beneficial, in addition to the statistics that some trends of the significant, I mean, not everything,
Sure.
but just the ones that you think are most significant
Yes,
in
sir.
terms of how well our kids are doing in college. Because I remember when we first started looking at this data, we kind of acknowledged that there were shortcomings, but we felt like it was gonna get better the longer we were getting data from it. And it's been a while since I recall getting a good summary of what those statistics look like.
Yes, sir.
So when you guys put that together, I think it would be helpful. You know, whatever you think are the relevant metrics.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Caston, now we can segue into moving outside of our academic, and some other, the other programs that we have to support college and career ready. Avid, cannot say enough about our Avid program, and again, could talk for like days about the progress that we're making in Avid. Again, just to highlight for our community, we have 10 elementary sites, 13 secondary sites. 8 campuses have been Avid sites for over 8 years. We have 2 campuses that have been Avid sites for over 6 years, and this is specifically at the elementary. We have 2 demonstration high schools, and it's important to note both of our high schools are coming up for reaccreditation in 2016, so we're already beginning to work. And Mr. Briggs has agreed he's going to come through and do a mini audit with us prior to that process. So if there's anything we need to shore up, we can do that ahead of time. But we have absolute confidence in both of our high schools. 10 of our campuses have earned certification status as well. Our secondary enrollment continues to increase at all grade levels. And this year we have over 82 Avid elective sections, and we're so incredibly proud of that. Greatest celebration, I think, since the time I've been here was kind of my opportunity to work with Jones Swim and design our own Avid pathway training. It's important to note that when a teacher attends Avid training, it's almost $800 a teacher, and it's normally kind of far away. Because we hosted it, it cost our campuses $125. And we received tremendous feedback that this was some of the best professional development our teachers had. Actually, at district planning committee meeting last week, we had several teachers who said every teacher needs to go through this training. This is an experience that every teacher, elementary, junior high, and high school needs to experience. So we are expanding the pathway training, and it'll be offered to all of our pathways at each of our levels. We will be using our 10 staff developers that we have that are endorsed through Avid, as well as Avid will be sending their own trainers. Last year, Patrick Briggs was our keynote, and I will tell you that we're working on a keynote that will be equally as impressive as Mr. Briggs, that will come in and really motivate those teachers as well. Another real just shining star for us. This year we are piloting at North and at Liberty an Avid Excel pilot program that specifically targets our ELL population. And what those elective courses do is help demonstrate and provide opportunities for our ELL students who would not have thought that they are pre-AP or AP ready to accelerate their learning both in language development, language acquisition, as well as in those strategies that they need to be successful. We would love to have you come and visit. We actually have the North Texas Regional Consortium that on October 20th will be visiting North. They're very excited to see that program in action. And the kids will amaze you with the progress that they have made in just the first 7 weeks of school. So, again, we will continue to monitor that. We have defined metrics of success, and pending how that does, we will look at expanding to our other junior highs. Another really wonderful announcement is that we have partnered with UTD, and UTD is actually paying for many of our Avid tutors this year. So some of the budget monies that we had previously allocated to providing those tutors had to come from our ISD budget, and we are now able to use those resources and those funds for programs like Avid Excel, as well as to make sure that that cost for our summer staff development program stays low, so we can send as many teachers as possible. Are there any questions about how we're with Avid? Awesome. Naviance?
Not because we don't love it.
No, I mean,
We do love it.
we love it too.
I'm gonna jump in because she might be getting ready to pass out. She's been talking so much.
And you don't need to hear my voice anymore. Go ahead.
I'll start. again, these next several slides are really about supporting that goal of getting all of our students toward that college and career readiness goal. And so we have several several programs that can really support us with that. Naviance is a platform that our students use that really connects them to those institutions of higher learning. We know that the overall process of getting connected with colleges and universities can be very overwhelming. And so what Naviance does is it gives them a clear sequence of tasks to complete and then also supports them as they go through the application process. We have it in 6th grade, it starts there actually, and as you can see, the first bullet, last year, 91% of our 6th graders completed Naviance tasks. And for 6th grade, obviously the tasks are very different than they would be in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, but these are just examples of what 6th graders did last year. A family connection with a student interest survey, a career cluster finder, and then they got to designate which clusters they chose as their favorites, and then the ones that they were most interested in. As you can see, last year, the one that was most popular for 6th grade especially was arts and then AV, technology and communication. And what that does is it lays the groundwork for transitioning into junior high and high school especially. And obviously our goal is to be sure that we have more of our 6th graders. We're going to find who those 20 or so kids were that didn't get those tasks complete. But the great thing about Naviance is that parents can help track and monitor, the students can, and then the district, the teachers and counselors, and the College and Career Readiness Department can track as well. Shars and Mel, they work with the campuses, they give updated reports to the campuses about how much progress has occurred with 6th grade in particular. Going throughout the rest of the year, really exciting news. Last year, the class of 2015 sent over 5,500 applications to prospective colleges. That's a massive number, and it's great to see that this particular platform helps support that. Class of 2015 also had 5,000 letters of recommendation sent to colleges too. And so the other thing we really want you to know about is the Naviance test completion is embedded in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade ELAR curriculum, which is working, as Tabitha mentioned earlier, working on those college resumes and common application essays. And then you'll hear a little bit more about Transition 101, but we want to reference that the Transition 101 newsletter will encourage families to explore the information available to them through Naviance, which includes what tests they use for admission, timelines and deadlines for different parts of the application process. It really lays it all out for the students and the family so that it's just not a completely foreign concept, because it is very much overwhelming.
And we have that video platform too, like if they want to explore different, I want to know what a journalist is, right? They can go on Naviance. What do they call that?
Vignette,
The little vignettes for each thing.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Any questions about Naviance? We can move on to Nepris. Nepris is another way that we're supporting the overall process, and really what it does is it enhances the real world connections by virtually inviting industry professionals to the classroom. What I think we love most about this is we're not bound by our location. We have access to real world professionals out there in the industry. Any industry you can think of, we have access to it. And so that provides a real support to the teachers and the students, because they can be connected to what's happening out there in the real world. They have virtual tours. We have examples where a teacher can connect with a real world professional and have them evaluate or just give feedback on a product that was actually created in the classroom, whether it's an enrichment cluster or a course in a higher level, and give feedback from an actual professional. You know, you guys did a really good job, but you may want to consider this. That's invaluable when it comes to keeping the curriculum, keeping the activities connected to the real world. We piloted it with the enrichment clusters, with the enrichment cluster focus group in the fall of 2014, and then we now have it where it's available for all K-12 teachers with unlimited usage for a 3-year contract. But again, the most important things to remember is that it really supports that connection to the real world and those professionals that are out there.
And Mr. Oliver, I just also want to mention, I know at one point you had really spoke to the fact of not inundating the same individuals over and over again. And this tool really allows us to seek out volunteers from really, nationally. I mean, there are people who've signed up for it, and so that way we know certain engineers, we're not inviting that same engineer to come speak to every campus over and over again. And this has been instrumental in that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, just can you clarify what y'all's expectations are for using this tool? I know, like, you clearly made it broadly available, but
On the elementary side, we expect the teachers to definitely use that as part of the enrichment clusters for the fall and the spring, because they are so closely connected to the 16 career clusters. Sharice and her team have really done a fantastic job of keeping it targeted, so that it's not just an isolated 6th grade, thing. It really is going to continue into secondary. So every teacher should be using that for the fall and spring clusters.
And we've trained instructional coaches and other individuals that will support teachers, so as they're in their PLCs and they're planning upcoming lessons or upcoming units, that instructional coach can make that suggestion, hey, this would be a great opportunity to bring in someone from NEPRIS, and either launch the product or the project with the students, or come in and provide that feedback, or even at the end, come in and be that peer evaluator. Maybe it's a mentor throughout the unit for the students. So lots of different ways for them to suggest how those teachers would be using it.
And is there a tie-in then with our PBL when it comes to like authentic audiences? and
Yes,
things like
ma'am,
that?
it's explicitly written into the PBLs that are given to each of our social studies science teachers.
That they use this tool in support of those PBLs?
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you.
So like it'll explicitly label, contact NEPRIS and schedule for 3 industry professionals, and it might identify the industry or specifically what expertise they would need to partner in that PBL.
Okay. How are we tracking utilization on this?
That's a great question.
NEPRIS provides us a report, a monthly usage report, and so the next monthly usage report will probably come out at the end of October, because most teachers don't start scheduling NEPRIS in August, September. They have to finish being trained, so we won't get, or at least those who are new to it. We do have people using it though, and we even had, the majority of our usage was in May, because we trained during that January through April timeframe. We trained every teacher on how to use it. And so May, we had about, the majority of our sessions happened in May, and then we even had some happen
We used
in
it
June and summer
extensively in
school.
when we redesigned our summer school program called Ignite. Our NEPRIS was embedded almost every day in working with our students in those 3 areas, and I also want to thank Ms. Hayes for that work as well.
So we'll move on to the College and Career Readiness website. Not a lot of bullets, but definitely a lot of growth and a lot of celebrations for this particular support component. As you recall, it was launched back in April of 2013, and we've noticed several trends, but one of the most important trends is that the usage, the hits, the site visits have continued to go up. But what we've seen the website evolve into is really a one-stop shop, so to speak, for parents and for families to really acquaint themselves with college and career readiness and really see it as a roadmap for K-12 and beyond. Again, the contents for preschool through post-secondary. A few of the things that we've noticed is that August, September, and October have typically been the months where the most views have occurred, the most clicks have occurred. But what we really want to do by emphasizing it and redefining the website itself is we want usage to be increased and then consistently in effect throughout the year. So we don't want a bubble at the beginning of the year. We really want to see usage become more consistent. And one of the things that I know will help with that is the Transition 101. But again, just a couple of things. Even the page views have continued to increase from year 1 to year 2, and we noticed that just in that 1 year alone, it increased by 2,807 views.
So what's your intuition about what's causing the bubble?
There's a lot of marketing that happens really close to the college fair that happens, that we host as a district. When I say a lot of marketing, I mean we have posters of the
That's
website.
driving them back to here.
Yes,
And we're directing people there. Right.
It
And
was on the t-shirts, it was on.
That's our first thoughts, because that's the time frame that all that's happening, and then people continue to view it in October.
So based on that, do we have a strategy for driving it the rest of the, for that, some kind of continued marketing during the course of the year
Yes.
to continue to drive that?
Yes.
That's that transition piece.
Yeah, we're about to get to Transition 101, and we will directly address that.
I think we will
Go ahead.
the transition.
Nice transition.
As you can see, we're doing everything that we can to make college and career readiness understandable and really comfortable for our entire K-12 population. Whether you are a family that has siblings in college right now, or you might be the first one in your family to go to college. And so one of the things that the College and Career Readiness Department has put into place really as of this month is a Transition 101 newsletter, and it's very exciting. This newsletter will go out to all 6th grade, I get this right, communicate with all 6th graders going into 7th grade and all 8th graders going into 9th grade. And each month they'll get this Transition 101 newsletter, and the purpose is really it's for the parents and the students, and it's to give them, enlighten them on the different types of things that are out there that are available to them for supports. And as you can see, it talks about the process and the timelines, even if it was 7th grade registration coming up in the spring. But it talks about Naviance. It talks about athletic and fine arts and what that looks like at the junior high and the secondary level, because at elementary we go to PE. You may not realize the different options that you can sign up for. Student organizations, pre-AP, again, the registrations. And then one of the things that we'll do is all of the newsletters will be archived on the College and Career Readiness website. So again, we're trying to direct traffic to the website because it's that go-to place. Let's see.
Really, the only other thing that I would add in terms of Transition 101 is really being deliberate about understanding that that transition is as significant for parents as it is for students. And that we are, instead of hitting them with all of the information that you could ever want to know about that next level of school, and we're going to hit it to you all in February when you have to decide your courses and write your 6-year plan, and we are really beginning that information and chunking that for parents as they go. So they get this letter, and this month it is going to speak to, athletics and fine arts. And for some of our parents, we have kiddos that are in orchestra in 6th grade, but in terms of the different athletic sport, they may not even be aware of all that we offer to our 7th graders. And what is available to girls versus boys. And so that information will not only direct them to the CCR website for information, but it'll also send them to the athletics and the fine arts website. So it provides an opportunity for Mr. Bradford and Coach Doobie to get information out and to begin to educate parents. So again, they're getting this information chunked instead of all at once. And then the other piece that is really important about that is that we're really working closely, Ms. Hunt and Dr. Bino are working really closely with our counselors, both our elementary counselors and our junior high counselors, to dispel any misconceptions that people might have about what is pre-AP and what is it not. And really, we have misconceptions that students should only take one pre-AP course because it's overwhelming. Or it helps them understand that junior high is the time to take those risks. Try these courses. Our job is to get a student and to prepare them and to grow them to be successful in those courses. So we have for example, a presentation that we created at the central level, and every 6th grader and every 6th grade parent is going to have an opportunity to hear that and to hear what is the difference between pre-AP and on-level, and hear it with one voice, so that we can ensure everyone gets that message. Part of Transition 101 is we've redesigned the pre-AP information night for parents. Again, that event, we had 600 parents show up last year, and it was one person speaking for an hour and a half, and parents left, I think, sometimes with more questions than they did answers. And we've redesigned that to be more session and conference style. So parents, if really they know they're really interested in math, or they're really interested in English language arts, they can have they can go to those sessions. They'll have an opportunity to hear from a student panel, where we'll have our AP ambassadors and some junior high pre-AP students talking about, this is really what, you can do this. This is this is fun, and this has really engaged me. So really completely differently. And Mr. Fuller, Ms. Hunt, and Dr. Goodson and I have really kind of turned it on its head to ensure that our students and our parents feel equipped to make the transition.
Questions?
I think it's great. I mean, obviously, as kids that are hopefully approaching this, I can identify with
Yes.
this parent. And I know, peers of mine that are, working through this and are appreciating getting this information, earlier in the process. Because it really is, it does take a lot of digesting figure out, how to make that transition. I guess one thing I'd throw out, and there's probably a good place for me to throw it in. One, I guess, frustration that I've heard from parents over the last couple of years, and hopefully we can figure out as we are working on this transition, how to make this transition smoother, is the on the pre-AP piece. I guess there's that transition from, I think it's specifically math, from 6th grade to 7th grade, and having to basically attend summer school so that you can take pre-AP 7th grade math. I mean, I think it's been kind of mind-boggling to them of, okay, how can my kid be in an elementary school for 7 years and they know my kid is a top math student? How can we not work that preparation into the
Absolutely.
6th grade curriculum so that transition can be more seamless?
Well, we have some good news
Good.
on that front. If you remember in the district improvement plan, we identified, you have set a goal for us of 40% of our students in 8th grade will be sitting in Algebra 1. And we recognize that in order for us to do that, that must start at the elementary level. The big change that parents see from 6th grade to 7th grade when they move to pre-AP, in our other courses, the students are receiving the same curriculum. So let's just take 7th grade English Language Arts pre-AP. That is still the 7th grade curriculum. It's just the strategies that we use to differentiate it, and the complexity and the depth is what's different. In mathematics, we moved to an accelerated model. So basically, students are getting pretty much 1.5 to 2 years of curriculum, because we're combining the 7th and 8th grade curriculum so that they can move into Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So that intensity that they feel is very real, because they recognize, because it's an accelerated course and they're basically getting almost 2 years of instruction in 1 year. What we are doing a little bit differently, and I'll let Dr. Goodson talk about some of the conversations we've had with the 6th grade math and clustering those students to provide them with an accelerated curriculum.
We started meeting with Shars and actually with Monica Simons as well, and Mel, to really determine the best way to transition into that. So we're setting the stage for that type of acceleration so that we don't have to try to cover so much during the summer, to be honest. But it'll be an opportunity during the math block, for example, where students who are ready for that level, we're kind of putting the finishing touches on it. We don't know if it's a matter of taking the math block and having one teacher work with a certain level of students who are kind of transitioning into this level of math. We're still working through some of the planning of it, but the goal is to have a 6th grade opportunity where during the math block we have different teachers who can address the different levels that they need, and particularly for those who are accelerating into this goal of the pre-AP and then eventually Algebra 1.
Ultimately, to do away with the summer camp?
That is our, yes.
Okay.
Now, we would, we would like to promote is that there's a summer camp for students who just love math, and want to experience, math projects and have extensions of math, see math in the real world. That would be more enrichment based versus curriculum based, and that's about giving them, specific skills so that they feel like they could be successful. So we know that there are still some kids, believe it or not, that could spend all summer doing math. And we want to still provide them with that quality opportunity, but not through the lens of, if you want to be successful in that 7th grade pre-AP math, you have to do summer camp.
Right.
That's the part that we want to dispel.
So I just want to say, I think this is a great program. I'm curious to know why, is it just that structural change and you guys are trying to bridge that? I know we had looked at a bunch of data that showed that our 6th graders were outperforming the rest of the state.
Mm-hmm.
But then that structural bridge, they end up taking a bump just like they would anytime we have
Transition.
Is that what we're trying to address with this? Is that why we're doing this?
For the math acceleration piece?
No,
You're talking about
Transition 101 in
Oh,
general.
the Transition 101 is in general. We received feedback from 6th grade parents that just, for example, for the pre-AP night, I came and I didn't really have prior understanding, and I sat there listening for an hour and a half, and I left not sure I understood what pre-AP is and how it's different than any other. When do I have my own information night just about athletics and about fine arts? If I could have gotten some of this information months in advance, I could have gone to the website and learned more instead of having to make a decision and get all of the information within a 2-week period. So it's based upon what we've heard from kids, what we've heard from parents, counselor feedback, and then not really, like, do our elementary counselors really understand that junior high world and can they speak to it? And so starting earlier with them. So it is just that, it's really not as much about how our sixth graders are performing very well. It's more about ensuring that they maintain that same level of performance as they move to 7th grade and at the same time feel comfortable with that. I know, I get there and I'm going to recognize that environment. It's not going to be brand new to me. And Ms. Hayes?
We wanted to give you a brief update on the licenses and certifications from last year's data. This is 14-15. As you recall from our past CT updates, the majority of these type of exams happen in the summer after graduation, as graduation is a requirement in order to sit for these exams. So we have two offerings right now that are licenses. One is in our cosmetology department, the other is in our health science. And in 14-15, we had 12 that received their cosmetology operator's license. That is a state test, remember, that they have to go to Austin to sit for. And then we had 42 that completed certification options for our students. And there's a chart in your handout that has a list of all those different areas.
What's the health science certification?
It is the Certified Nurse Assistant, CNA, and since we're only in year 2, we don't have any students
You didn't
qualified
have
for
any
that
tried
yet.
for that. Sandra, what are the big constraints that you have in terms of additional licenses and certifications that you want to offer? Is it facilities or, let me ask you that first. Are there licenses and certifications that you guys would like to offer that we just can't yet, or?
Yes. For the license side of the house, the majority of those that the state recognizes are typically in the trade industry. And so we don't have a lot of those HVAC, electricity,
Right.
we don't have a lot of those programs in place currently. So those licenses are not available for our programs. Our building trades is very small. Room is a very small room, and so we're very limited in what we can offer. We have just one teacher, so we have limited space for that program to grow. For certifications, we offer a wide variety of certifications in most of our areas for our kids that want those, so we feel comfortable about that.
Yeah. And how many, I can't remember, how many kids are served today by the automotive program, RHS?
I did not bring that data with me.
Okay. I just know they get a ton of certifications every year, so
He is
that's.
full, he runs 7 periods a day,
Yeah.
a single teacher, 0 hour and after school.
Yeah.
And
I
so
was
it's
just
a very
curious,
popular
yeah.
program that we have. I can pull those, it's all preliminary numbers and we've not submitted our
That's
snapshot
fine,
data yet.
it's not urgent. I was just curious if that was like
It's full.
a multiple certifications per student, or it probably is.
It
I mean,
is,
they're
in some
probably
instances.
getting 2 to 3 certifications, each of them.
It was really exciting when Mr. Stotts and our team met with Richardson the other day. And for example, Richardson is looking at other certification opportunities that they could provide that maybe even they haven't thought of, like their accounting program and their accounting certification that could transfer to a full program at a 4-year university. They are going to be able to offer that for our students that are for high schools. Really, again, they have a robust number of programs that we're going to be able to add that maybe individually at a campus we couldn't support, but district-wide through Richland we will be able to.
I'll just kind of wrap it up, and I know everybody needs a break, but I hope you enjoyed the presentation tonight. I will tell you, I am confident in saying when we look at our priority goal of 3 hours college credit or certification or license, we're owning that. We are communicating expectations. We're putting structures in place. We're looking at data. We're tracking data. We're enhancing staff development. And we'll keep looking at data and analyzing data and continuing the mode of continuous improvement. Just want to thank you for your support in this area and excited about moving forward with some bond recommendations which will support these programs in terms of facilities and programs, especially in our 4 target areas. Speaking to kind of what Dr. Kuhn was referencing. And then curriculum-wise, with just the study sequence and the course offerings, we'll continue to analyze those. But anyway, hope you were pleased with the report tonight. We will follow up and provide some information to you later regarding, I just want to track what I've got. The AP report for Berkeley STEM, and then National Clearinghouse data with trends, and then the number of students in the auto program. We can get that information to you guys later this week. It should be good.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. And just to, as we transition out of this, I know there are some additional data points or some additional information on the college and career readiness priority goals. Ms. Brown, Dr. Stone, Dr. Goodson, do you have any concluding remarks that you'd like to share in terms of?
No, we just wanted to provide you some insight into some things that we're doing in the area of tracking, how we're expanding our course offerings, and our robust communication and marketing plan that we have in place to ensure that we're making progress towards the identified goal of every student having 3 hours of college credit or a certification or license. So those are just some information points to let you know the work that we've done so far and the progress that we're making towards that
Would you
goal.
like to highlight some of those?
Absolutely.
Wraps it up for us.
Just quickly, wanted to note that our 2015-2016 school year is our benchmark year. So at the end of this year, we will be able to provide to the Board of Trustees currently this year how many of our students would have met that identified mark. Additionally, Ms. Hayes and her team have been able to provide and create a tracking process that will be in focus. And for the most part, it will be pretty seamless for our counselors. It will require some work on the CTE end because they will have to go in. Oftentimes the certifications and licenses are reported from an outside agency, and so they will have to hand enter those. But in terms of AP and dual credit and others, we will be able to automatically upload that into Focus, into this tracking system, and counselors will have very little individual input to do in this area. In terms of expanding our course offerings, Ms. Hayes has talked about her work with CTE. I've shared our AP and dual credit, as well as the GPA and grade point weight implications that we would like to bring to the Board of Trustees at a future meeting. And then I think, Dr. Kuhn, to go back to what you mentioned earlier, what is going to be critical is our communication and our marketing. And ensuring that our principals, our counselors, and our teachers have multiple times to hear why it is that we're doing this work, and that this is really about providing opportunities for students to identify a pathway and demonstrate that college and career readiness in a way that is meaningful to them. We know, for example, that if we increase dual credit participation, there may be students who are choosing dual credit versus choosing AP. And that is okay, because what we want is for students to demonstrate their CCR through any of these indicators that we have shared with you tonight. But teachers need to hear that, and they need to understand why. We know that we need to really work with counselors. This is going to be a complete transformation of how they've defined dual credit in the past. So making sure they feel equipped to help to help students and help parents, and that planning process will be critical. And then, again, we're working with our communication team to develop a really strong marketing program that will include multimedia, it will include print, it will include meetings, face-to-face meetings, to help our external and internal community understand this goal and what we're doing to achieve it.
Fantastic.
Ms. Hayes, anything you want to add?
That's it.
One thing I'd like to open it up here to board members here in just a moment. First of all, Ms. Branham, thank you. A little over 2 hours of providing a comprehensive overview, and this is a different type of presentation that we've had in the past. Typically in the past we've focused on numbers and not really talked about the direction and the destination that we want to go and how we're going to get there. So I appreciate that you've laid out these action plans and have provided us with this overview and perspective. You and Dr. Goodson being able to talk to it so eloquently, and then providing the necessary numbers that support the work that you're doing. So this is a new way of having these presentations and conversations. So thank you. I know that takes more time on your part to prepare, but I'll open it up to the board members if y'all would like to make any closing comments. And Lynette, I'm looking right at you, and I apologize. I don't know why.
I have all my questions, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. David?
Well, I'm just thrilled to see the progress that you guys have made. I will reiterate that. I think it's phenomenal, the amount of work that you guys have been able to lift up. So I can't remember when was that, April, May, that we first kind of set that out as kind of a North Star for where we wanted to go. So, I mean, I'm just really excited about the opportunities that our students are going to have because of the work that you guys are doing. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much also, not really any more questions, but I don't have the perspective of where we were last year since I wasn't here, but I do have the perspective of a 2014 graduate and going through, you know, some colleges were asking me, well, just get on Naviance, and I asked my counselor, what's Naviance? You know, so it's great, all these tools that you're putting in place and all this communication to help parents understand AP, you know, all these opportunities will make a huge impact on what the kids can do and also how the parents can understand the choices as well. So, good stuff.
Okay, with that, y'all, we're going to take a short 5 to 7 minute break. If you'd like to get something to drink, stretch your legs, take a break. So we'll be back shortly.
I want to know if this
That would be a question for Mrs. Bennett.
Catherine deserved it, yes.
Was for me.
No.
Sam and I are over here going, we don't like these things.
Good night. Have a good night. Have a good night.
You'll be on your phone?
I'll be here. But it's in there.
How was 7th grade going? Junior high's good? Oh, really? My son's at West. He's kind of getting used to it too. You doing okay? Good.
So then after that, then we're doing some training on the assessment because you know the I should do at this level, the elementary Well, we can talk about her. As far as basic. Yes!
But you know what? I'm not gonna. Okay.
The other thing that we ask her is what interventions So what we'll do is set up another public. I don't know the results of this assessment.
This goes with that clicker.
You can call about me anytime you want.
Here's this. That, I think is the Here.
First time entering college, step by step by step.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's.
Where was your conference?
Yes. Doing all right?
My sister kid, AP, you got 3 AP kids. Like, that's so big.
See the items for technology, these were items we would reasonably expect to complete. They may fluctuate a little bit depending on the types of devices that are actually in play at that particular time, what systems fail.
In the area of instructional technology, and specifically, the the board had a lot of questions about some of those numbers, and so from that meeting, we've been working ever since that meeting to put together this sheet. And so if you'll get this handout, I think this will maybe give you some information about the numbers. If you look on this Mr. Harper Road's sheet, this one here, and go down to the item under instructional technology, you can see the grand total program request is $63,216,050. And then there's two amounts that correspond to the items that are on this handout. The first one being the refresh items of $39,799,350, and then the enrichments of $23,416,700. And so what Mrs. Hayes and I have done since that meeting on Tuesday night is to put this sheet together for you that really spells out the specifics about what is in each of those figures. And then the other thing that you asked for was kind of a big overarching question. At the end of the day, what would be our standard classroom complement for our ISD? And so we've attempted to put that together for you based on if the bond included both the refresh amount and the enrichment amount. And so I'm going to ask Mrs. Hayes. She gave all the figures. I kind of made the pretty. She's going to take you through kind of the specifics, starting with the refresh amount of $39,799,350. Let's talk about that one first.
Okay, so the way we build our budgets, it's, you're asking to build out a budget for 5 years in technology, and we don't even know what's going to be around in 5 years. So what we do is we look at our existing deployment numbers and the cost of the devices that we budgeted in the 2011 bond, and then we work from there. So we are looking at refreshing 5,000 desktops, and these are both for employees in order to do their jobs and lab settings and miscellaneous student needs across the district, and then 12,000 laptops. And a laptop can mean anything from a low-end, just a lab laptop that students use for doing some type of research, to the high-end laptops that we have to have for our employees to operate some of our systems, to the high-end laptops that the STEM kids need in order to do AutoCAD and Maya and those kind of things. So it's a variety of laptops. We're not talking about a single type of laptop. And then we have our one-to-one programs in place at the 3 magnets, and we'll continue to refresh those devices at West, MST, and STEM Academy. And then some additional 24/7 programs, if we have programs of choice where students need to take machines home, that will be part of that refresh. And then our classroom sets that are currently out there to be refreshed. Same thing with peripherals. We're going to refresh 2,000 mounted projectors, some sound systems. Elementary is asked to put elementary classroom printers back in, and so that's 1,574. And then refreshing any of the lasers and scanners that are used out in the schools.
Sandra, will you talk a little bit about what the sound system is?
For this line, these are the FlexCat systems. So it is a lanyard for the teacher for audio, along with pods that sit around the classroom, what we have put in our pilot classrooms. When you visited our pilot classrooms, that's what we're talking about. Currently, we have sound systems in all of our classrooms that are speaker-based. So they're either in the ceiling with our projectors or on carts. And so this is a more enhanced feature for those classrooms that might need it for student needs. And then there's software that we have to refresh in order to operate the district. And then miscellaneous, we have MediaCast, which is our YouTube channel that we've created for teachers to post videos, and students and parents have access. We need to refresh that. And then our program management.
So that would be all of the refresh items, all of those, but then on top of that, for us to make enrichments, this figure's been adjusted, because you might recall last Tuesday night, this total dollar amount was at $43 million. So you can see some adjustments have been made. And so we're going to go over our instructional enrichments at this time. So Sandra?
We need to enrich an additional 2,000 desktops and 3,000 laptops. We need to look at docking stations for teachers for classroom use. The laptop that is chosen for teachers to use needs to have a dock so that they have attachment to their keyboards and monitors like they do now. And then 10,000 tablets. An additional 494 mounted projectors would mean we would have a new projector available for every classroom across the district. The number of classrooms that we use is 2,494. That came from facilities. And then additional printers, Pace has asked for some additional printers that are not currently out there, and that was placed in enrichments. Some extra software, things that we've purchased along the way that we need to add to. And then miscellaneous, we'd like our own truck so that we can deliver our hardware and software in a timely manner, opposite of what's going on. And then we need a digital audio video signage solution district-wide. We started it but didn't have enough funds to finish, so we would like to pick that project back up, and that includes a lot of cabling and TVs and devices, electricity, et cetera, for around the campuses. And then the Apple TV is an example of a streaming device. We would like to put some kind of streaming device in every classroom. That's $2,494. Right now, we're deploying Apple TVs, but there are many new devices on the market. And this is what you hear teachers complain about. They say, I hate being tethered to the wall. I can't just play what I want and walk around because I'm plugged in, because I have to plug in order to get to the projector in order for the kids to see it. So these streaming devices allow me to take and stream wirelessly what's on my desktop over to this device and then out to the projector so that I can walk around the classroom and do that. And so that's what we would like to add for classroom use.
So what I would also say is this last week we met with all of our secondary principals in 2 different meetings, and we talked a lot about technology, and we listened to them and listened to them about what they needed for their standard classroom complements. Some of that was built into all of this work that we're bringing forward tonight. So I guess at the end of the day, you can see that our goal is to have a standard classroom complement in every one of the 2,494 classrooms. And so if we were to pass a bond that would have both of these figures, the refresh and the enrichments included, we would have a standard classroom complement that would include every teacher having a mobile device, so a laptop or some type of computer device. Every classroom would have a mounted short throw projector. Every classroom would have ID paint or a plastic display on the wall. Every classroom would have a printer, a sound system, a streaming video solution, a document camera, a docking station, and if we include in the bond the 15,000 additional devices added for classroom availability, every standard classroom complement would have availability to check out classroom sets as needed for curriculum needs. And so in listening to the principals and really to get to that goal that you expressed last Tuesday night of us to not be suboptimal in terms of technology, we believe that this standard classroom complement would meet that goal.
So I have a question, Dr. Stone, either you or Mrs. Hayes can address it. I know from being on the Strategic Technology Committee, the feedback that we've gotten from, that we've received from teachers and all, tell us how this technology would impact and influence instructional delivery on the part of the teachers. I'll just...
So the streaming Apple TV is an example of that. That's the feedback that we've heard from a lot of teachers is don't tether me to the wall. Obviously, the laptops that they're currently using are in their 5th year or older, and so the wireless capacity that we have in our classrooms, the wireless changes, the channels change, so we need newer devices that pick up that new wireless and make it a more stable environment for teachers. So we hear a lot from teachers that say, you know, I get on and then it drops me when I move around, and so that's the older devices that they're using. So this would give them newer devices, more devices availability, so more access for students. The short throw projector gives us some capacity in our classrooms that we didn't have with a standard projector, because a lot of our buildings are so old, they have, and Mr. Harper may have to, centric air conditioning units, if that's what they're called, in the very middle of the classroom, and so you can't mount a projector. If you mount it to each side, air blows out, and so the projector always moves. So it tends to make instruction a little bit difficult. So a short throw projector goes up on the wall, and it allows for the projection screen to be right at the wall, and so no one can walk in front of it, so it doesn't block instruction. So there can be movement around the room while the visual is still available. Where right now, if you walk in front of the projectors, there's a shadow, and so when you do group work, a lot of teachers have to really work around that where the screen is displayed, and so that will help that. Sound systems, we have, as I said, we have sound in our classrooms, but in some cases we need to have more sound availability, and for collaborative purposes, those pods work really well where teachers can hear the different groups talking at the same time without having to try to get around to every area at the same time, and the kids can touch their button and talk, and everyone can hear what they're saying, and then the next group can do that, and they can take them out in the hall, and the teacher can hear what they're doing if they're in a different collaborative space. So that will help with our instruction.
I would say, in visiting the instructional technology group that you're talking to, I remember hearing several statements such as, "I would like to do that, but,"
Yeah.
or "I wish I could do that, but," and sometimes it's that I can't get connected, or I don't have, this could take away the, "I would like to do that, but." It could take away the limitations that, and take away that statement. I don't believe we would hear those kinds of openings to statements moving forward.
These will provide a very stable environment with easy access for teachers and students in the needs of technology.
The one thing you can speak to in the classroom complement was the one that I don't know what it is. What's a document camera?
Oh, that is, it's like an old overhead projector. So it's a small device, allows you to do 3D
Oh, the
displays.
Elmos?
Like, yes, an Elmo.
Got it. Thank you.
What this would also do that's key is that if we knew that every teacher had this complement, we could embed things in the curriculum knowing that it was a standard that every teacher could implement with fidelity, because the standard is there for every single of the 2,494 classes. So we wouldn't have to be thinking, okay, but who has it, or who doesn't, who has, those kinds of things. So that's probably one of the biggest things that it would provide in terms of, yeah, huge.
Would you address you said the 1,500 printers for elementary that they asked to put those back. What does that mean? What are they using them for, and what was that request?
It came directly from the elementary curriculum and instruction department because of the amount of printing that they need for their curriculum. Teachers would like to have a color inkjet printer. We had those for many years in our classrooms, and so we stopped supporting those, and they asked for us to be able to provide those back in those classrooms. So that would just be putting it's a slave printer, which means it's tied directly to the teacher laptop. It is not his network, but it allows them to do color printing for their curriculum.
We'll have to add I would think a small supply component on the M&O side to support with cartridges, because that's one of the common complaints we hear out in the schools is that they have access to things like that, but then the PTA or somebody or the teachers are doing the printer the cartridges out of their own pocket.
We don't believe we'll have to make any modification to the operating budget. We've looked at that several times, and we'd be happy to share information with you. Every single campus has access to funds.
So somehow we still hear it all the time. So
well, we need to message that with principals. We've talked about that at Superintendent's Council. We've seen the data as far as the amount of dollars that are available at each campus, and we simply do not believe that is true. So if you're hearing that, we would love to hear who you're hearing it from, and we'd be happy to talk to them individually if needed to help point out where they have funds available to be able to buy the supplies that they need.
I would just say that it's not isolated. I mean, it's, it's pretty pervasive.
We can visit with all principals.
Well, I mean, it's, if you go on Facebook at the start of the year, you're likely to see some parents complaining about the amount of stuff their kids have to take to school that first week, boxes of Kleenex and copy paper and.
Well, that's something we can work on too, is the supply list. We've tried to bring those in over the years, and there's times where they get a little out of control. They're supposed to be vetted through Dr. Goodson and Ms. Brand before they go out. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But we do not believe there'll be any.
I think a lot of times it's the school supply lists are fine. It's the teachers then have their own supply lists.
That may very well happen.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah. So it adds up.
Yeah.
It really does.
You bet it does.
And then obviously there would be an implementation schedule. You're not going to do all 2,000 classrooms in 1 year. So is this It will take a full
18
5 years
months.
to catch up, or is it over 2 or 3? What's the
This is a
estimated?
small box truck, there will, no, it'll have to be a 5-year phase-in, and Mr. Harper Road will disperse our funds by years, so we'll look at that and determine how many we can do. We try to do it certainly by grade levels, and we try to do elementary schools all together, secondary, junior highs and high school, so that the models kind of stays consistent across the board for students in the same grade levels. Right now, we have a refresh cycle, so year 1 is always staff and administrator laptops. Year 2 and 3 are secondary, and then year 4 and 5 are elementary and libraries. And so that's kind of how we'll follow that same. I suspect, I haven't talked to Mr. Harper, but I suspect our
We haven't gotten
cycles
to
will
that
stay.
point yet. There will be a limit as to the amount of bonds. You know, what always happens is everybody wants to be in year 1. And you can't physically handle that much in year 1. And so we'll have to determine what the maximum amount, once we land on the dollar amount, and go through the election process. Assuming all goes well, then we would have to sit down and determine the draw schedule and what we could afford to issue in any given year.
So this increase in devices, is that going to drive any changes to the network work that you're going to do in terms of bandwidth capacity to handle that number of devices?
Bandwidth capacity will always increase each year. We've done that consistently for the past 4 years, and that's an operating expense that's not bond related. As far as access points, with the infrastructure we put in 2011, we are in good shape for access points. We will have to switch out. There is a new wireless configuration, and so we will have to be strategic on the access points that we roll out. Would not be 100% coverage necessarily in the next 5 years. And then there is an enterprise technology bucket that is for our infrastructure as far as switches and routers and server replacements to continue. As you know, technology changes, so as soon as we put in our new infrastructure, there was a whole new set. And there's also, of course, we're new cabling. Cat 6A is now available, a new standard for cabling, so we'll have to switch out cabling along the way as well. And that's part of our infrastructure bucket.
I think this is great work. Thank you so much for this information. Just real quick, I mean, my question is about flexibility of the technology, because you know, you talked about having to have it on the desktop and then throwing it up on the printer and stuff like that. I think it's great. I thought, you know, I consider myself a pretty high-tech guy. You know, I couldn't figure that out in my life on how you do that. So I wish all the teachers good luck. But my question is, I mean, that capability, it sounds fantastic, but you know, in 3 or 4 years, that may be different. I mean, we may have a different capability based on technology.
I can almost guarantee it.
Okay, well, there's my point. So what have you built that flexibility in this? I'm assuming so, but I just wanted to hear from you.
Yes, so as I said at the very beginning, we have to build our budget based on current existing devices and prices. And so then we have to have the flexibility, and that's why the general bonds work well for us, because we have to have the flexibility to make those adjustments. Just like we did in 2011, we budgeted and planned to only disperse desktops and laptops, because that's all there was when we started in 2011. And then suddenly the iPad came on board. And so we had to stop and say, okay, what desktops can we leave in place and not refresh, and move some funding over to iPads and start dispersing tablets. And so that's exactly what we did.
And that, I think that's really, what she just said is very, very important. It's sort of like my widget example. You know, you gotta be careful about saying, we're gonna go out and buy 2,392 widgets or iPads, because in 5 years, there'll be a dinosaur.
Right.
So, you know, but if you get that specific, you will be obligated to buy however many iPads, and you will not have the flexibility to shift gears like you're saying and buy whatever the current technology is. So using terminology that's as generic as possible, devices, you know, that type of thing, and try not to get specific as much as we want to on this. Try to keep it as high level as you possibly can.
So the standard complement of technology.
Mobile device, you know.
For instruction and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And evolve to whatever that evolves to.
Current standard. Yeah.
Right. Just don't use the, you know, the exact term. Try to avoid, you know, it'll be soda instead of Coca-Cola, it'll be copier instead of Xerox. You know, you just gotta be as generic as you can possibly be.
Clean it.
Tissue.
Tissue.
Say, can you help me with trying to understand, I guess, the capability of the Apple TV piece and how much of that overlaps with, you know, what we're currently using the projector for, and if, you know, those two coexist, does the Apple TV ultimately, if you can beam anything to that TV, does it ultimately replace the projector? I'm just trying to understand how those two coexist. and what you use
Classrooms
going
only
forward.
have projectors, they don't have TV monitors. So in the enterprise network, what an Apple TV does is allow the teacher to stream wirelessly what is on their mobile device. So right now, teachers have to be plugged into a wall and the cabled in. And so what that Apple TV does by installing
Sorry,
that.
so now they're plugged into the wall, beaming to the projector.
They're not, the Apple TV is plugged in. The teacher is able to walk around with their device wirelessly and stream what's on it.
Right.
So you can't do that without an Apple TV or some device.
That's what we have at White Rock.
We did, we put those in the pilot classrooms.
So I guess,
So I've got,
if we can beam to the Apple TV now, going forward with the
Uh-huh.
standard classroom complement, do you still need the
Oh,
projector?
Apple
yeah.
TV is just a little white device. It's not a real TV.
it's not a TV, it's just a
It is
white
a
box.
small appliance. It looks like a white box.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry. So they call it Apple TV, but it is
it's
just
not
a
a TV.
device. It is not. It is just a small white device that's about that big that plugs into your network. And it picks up the wireless device from your device and then streams it back to then the projector.
Okay,
Because
we'll have
it's
to
plugged
come up
in.
with a generic term for
Yes.
Apple TV.
They're only
It's
They're only
really
What's
only,
that streaming
it's
device?
called streaming
Devices.
devices.
Streaming device.
Yes.
It's exactly like a Roku or a Chromecast.
Yeah.
Chromecast, we're looking at Chromecast. So many of these products were built for the consumer market. They work great in your home, on an individual network. They do not work on the enterprise network. And so, as a matter of fact, Apple TV has been out 3 years now, and the first two versions you could not use on the enterprise network. Just version 3 of the Apple TV came out that we could try. That's what we put in our pilot classrooms last year. So,
Right. And I guess part of my confusion, don't we have some of those pilot classrooms where we actually did do physical TVs on the wall, or no? No? Nobody's got that?
they all have short throw projectors.
Okay.
With Apple TV.
Yeah, we have some teaming tables in some of the conference rooms that have a monitor on them.
Because that streaming goes through the enterprise network, then we still have the ability to monitor and,
Yes, it still has the filters and everything built in. Yes, it's not wide open.
And it's entirely possible, in fact, probably likely, that within 3 or 4 years,
There'll be
projectors will
something
be built in. It'll have
Yes,
built-in
that's what
streaming.
that's why we anticipate the short throw projector being a better solution,
Yeah.
because it works in all of our classrooms, and that new technology is coming out.
Right.
The interactive projectors that we put in some of our classrooms does that very thing.
So in that light, sometimes it's not advantageous to be front of the line.
Yeah. It's true.
other questions?
It's not really a question, but it's just, you know, as we go through this and decide these different areas to invest in, I mean, Tony, I'm sure will vouch for the fact that, I mean, the spending $23 million in technology enrichments has a very different impact on our future capacity than spending $23 million on facilities. So that's just something we'll have to be mindful of, because we're signing up to refresh most of that. So it's just something we have to be aware of, right? It has a very different implication in terms of future bond capacity.
Right. The other item that we talked about was under construction. The dollar amount has not changed, but we had dialogue at our last meeting about the non-traditional high. That is still over in the enrichment piece, and be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to have additional thoughts about that item.
So in our last meeting, we had a discussion about the non-traditional academy, whether it would be a one-story facility, also a two-story facility. Howard, will you review, please, again, the cost differential for that, a one-story versus a two-story, and then what does a two-story provide in meeting current needs and providing for future
Sure.
growth?
What's included is, for the $8 million includes renovations to the annex as part of staff moving out and other staff moving in, different departments moving in. And then it includes building a 22,000 square foot structure adjacent to the annex. And that would be a single-story structure that would accommodate the instructional needs for non-traditional high with 3 separate schedules during the day, an AM, an afternoon, and an evening, that would accommodate somewhere between 450 and 500 students is what we've indicated. That's what's included for that $8 million. I think the non-traditional academy portion, that's about $7.3 million. The thought would be if you feel like you would ever have, or within a reasonable period of time would have a need for additional space, whether it be academic, professional development, administrative, it's going to be more efficient to go vertical with that space than it would be just to increase your total footprint, your horizontal space. So that was really the question for you is given our growth, and there's always, I know professional development, I'll use that as an example, there's always demands for additional space there. The PDC is limited as far as parking. We've done some enhancements there to try to increase that, but you know we have some limitations, and so creating another site that could handle some of that demand would ease the burden on a professional development center. I mean, there's a lot of different things. You wouldn't even have to complete the second story. You wouldn't have to finish it out completely, but building it and having the structural steel and the infrastructure there to be able to support it with the elevator shaft and all those things is much more cost effective to do it on the initial end than it is to come in and try to retrofit a single-story building. If you were to try to, and I'll use the annex as an example, if we were to try to retrofit the annex and make it a 2-story building, it would be cheaper to tear it down than it would be to try to turn that in, because the structure will not handle the weight. And so the structural steel in the walls, structural steel in the roof, it will not accommodate the load. So that's just the thought, is if you felt like there was any need for that additional space, and what I hear repeatedly is that there is you grab the second story and do that while you're doing the construction. Now, we don't have the exact cost there. It wouldn't double this price because you've got the infrastructure as far as all the electrical, the foundation and drainage and all those kinds of things that you're already going to address in the demo. So it's not doubling that $7.3 million, but it would it would go up. It would probably be around somewhere in the $12 to $13 million range, depending on the finishes and what you wanted to put there.
And then, Dr. Stone, in your conversations with principals last week, did you all discuss the non-traditional program?
We
and
did.
their
We
perspective?
talked about it at length and definitely affirmed the need to provide the facility to our students, and with some urgency, I would say.
Yes.
That definitely, that we needed to start moving forward with this now.
So then, board members, I'm going to turn it to us. Perspectives, Mr. Bull?
Mr. Harper, if you could just clarify, so, I just want to make sure I understood you, so, and I know you're working with very rough numbers here, so, but the 12 million-ish, was that to go ahead and physically add a second story, or were we talking about, at some point, was there a discussion about building the first story with the structural steel necessary to, if we needed to, go back and go vertical later, we had the base built, if you will, to do that? I guess,
the
was that?
12 would give you
Was that an
from
option?
the outside, it would be it would look finished. It would be weathered in.
Okay.
And so, it'd have a roof and walls and windows, and from the outside, it would look like a complete building. It wouldn't just be steel sticking up above the first story.
So there's not an option to just build the first story with, enough of a structure underneath to then go vertical
You'd want
later
to
on?
weather it in. You'd want to put the outside walls, the roof, the windows, just so you don't have water damage and other damage from the elements. So But now you don't have to finish the inside. You know, it could be just rough, I mean, big open space with unfinished floors and the steel studs in there and then open girder ceiling. So it could look like until you decided, you know, what you wanted. Or it could be finished out with big open spaces that could be flexible and used for PD, construction, you know, a lot of different kinds of options.
Other thoughts?
Just I know that we, at the last discussion, the 8 million number, we talked about the possibility of using capital projects for that. And just curious to get your take on ability to handle I didn't hear the exact, the 12, 13.
You know, I feel like we can, only because you're gonna be able to, we're talking about completion by August of 2017. And so I get the transfer that occurred or is occurring as part of the fiscal 2014-15 year.
Right.
I get the 15-16 surplus.
Yeah.
And then I actually get the 16-17 surplus.
Okay.
And so we would have to manage it pretty closely.
Right.
You know, when those expenditures occur and, you know, when the draw schedules for that would occur and when we would be able to transfer funds to be able to accommodate it.
Right.
But because we can pick up that third year, that 16-17 transfer, and that's assuming that we continue to have pretty strong gains on property value. That's what's generating that surplus right now. You know, and our enrollment would need to be fairly stable, but assuming all that, then yes, we could accommodate capital projects.
If we, for whatever reason, didn't have quite that strong year, I mean, couldn't we borrow from the permanent school fund with an intention to put that back?
What I would ask is try to hold on to the corpus of the permanent school fund.
I understand.
And then just allow me to solve it for you another way. Because you don't really care where the money comes from necessarily, as long as it's legal and
Yeah.
So we have other provisions within our financial statement to be able to accommodate that in the event that we had, you know, let's say property values stall and we don't generate the surplus in the third year on it. We feel pretty confident that we're gonna generate the surplus. We've already generated surplus for this year, for the fiscal year we just closed. And we feel pretty confident that we're gonna generate the surplus for 15-16, because we already seen what's happening with values here. Now, based on that trend line, and I think, you know, Mr. Bono and probably others in the room can speak to that probably better than I can, that we don't foresee, I mean, at what point do you forecast that it's gonna go down? I don't know, but we don't foresee that trend number stalling completely. It may not be as robust as it was last year or this year, but it's still going to be an increase, at least for the next couple of years. So we could do other things. We've made some provision within fund balance itself, but it would allow us to hang on to the corpus of that permanent school fund. That was a revenue generator, is why that was created. It's a very unique attribute to our credit rating, and the agencies look at that, and they think that is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, you know, to take away that unique attribute would be damaging for us.
So do you need input from us on this now?
What I would suggest is if we have any more questions or clarification, what I'm hearing is that there seems to be support for the additional floor, the two-story building that provides us additional opportunities for professional development and or whatever other activities we would need. And then, Dr. Wagner, why don't we make this an action item on the first Monday of the month, our general meeting, because for the CM at risk, and because I think the more lead time that Mr. Longnecker and you have,
That would be great. That would be most appreciated. 30 days is huge on this timeline.
Okay, we can bring that the first meeting in November.
Yes.
And so does that then still leave some flexibility. I guess, does that also make the decision of whether that's a capital project or not, or we figure that out down the road?
That,
So I guess my other concern here is just, the demographic study that's still 2 months out and the discussion we're gonna have there. I mean, I'm, in my own mind, whether it's related to this or capital projects or wherever, I'm fully expecting to have to do something in Lake Highlands. I don't know if everybody else is, but, so, to me, that's a big black hole here that, whether it's a capital projects or elsewhere, that we haven't had a discussion on yet. So I fully believe this is something we need to do, and I'm 100% supportive of it. It's just a question of how and when and where. So, to some degree, would love some flexibility to still have that conversation as we kind of get through these demographic discussions and figure out how all the other noise settles out.
And not trying to rush you on the decision on this at all. It's just that if you want that by August of 2017, then our deadline would be December. And I'm certainly not trying to pressure you on the 2-story versus 1-story. We can absolutely build a 1-story building, go try to keep the cost as low as possible. The 7.3 May, that is a very rough estimate, and we're asking architects to give us prices before they design it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to do that. I mean, they don't at all, they hedge, and so that number is gonna have a little buffer because you're just asking them to do something to give you the end product without doing the work to get to the end product. And that's not, reasonable necessarily. So let them have time to design it, give you a hard number, and if you want to go with a smaller number and we can skip the 2-story, that's fine. Later on down the road, if you wanted to add something else, we could do that. You just do it on another portion of that 4.88 acres. This would be a little less efficient, is all it would be.
So we could make the recommendation to take it out of the one, plan to pay for capital projects, either the 1-story or the 2-story. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we would need what we need on the CM at risk is we have bounced that contract all over the place, from 35 million down to 8 million. And that construction company, they will need to have a reasonable expectation about what we're talking about. You can't go in and approve a CM at risk contract with a blank on the dollar amount. So, we're gonna need to make a decision on that part. So if we're not comfortable going with if we don't feel like we have enough information for the 2-story piece of it, if we feel like there is we know there's a need for the non-traditional academy, you just go to the 1-story and we don't make an additional decision on that. We just have to build a different building if you wanted additional PD space down the road or needed additional academic space down the road.
Okay. What I've heard tonight, then this brings back, Dr. Wagner, a recommendation, taking into consideration what you've heard here tonight, if you would bring us back the recommendation of the November general meeting for us to move forward with that decision on the construction manager of this, that'll be great. But I think we've heard good perspectives from everybody, and that'll allow y'all to go back and gather more information or data if you need to. Ms. Bono?
I know this is, I should have asked this before you did that nice conclusion, and I've heard the need for professional development space, and I guess what I'm missing is the level of intensity of what you guys think in turn, because I can't make that judgment of how much we might need that space in the short term or longer term. Is there some way to get from you guys, golly, we really need that, or, gosh, this would be a really nice to have thing, or, and professional development, obviously there's other opportunities, but I guess what I'm asking for is your level of desire for this to enhance the delivery of our product to our students.
There's definitely a level of desire for the non-traditional, for sure.
That I understand.
Got that.
Right.
So then it comes to, if we build a second floor, that would be a really nice thing to have, because I think professional development space is always at a premium across the whole district. And so that would be a really nice thing to have. And compared to the need that we know for the non-traditional, that's a must-have, I would say. And then I think the second floor would be just a really nice thing to have so that we're not limited and always having to schedule with professional development. Would that be, Dr. Wagner, would you agree with that?
I would, I say definitely strong urgency for August 2017 on non-traditional. I mean, hands down, no question, I think
Right.
everybody,
Right.
all of our instructional leaders and principals would vouch for that. In terms of the top floor, the most likely use would be professional development. Again, not as urgent, but in terms of looking at efficiency and best use of tax dollars, we will need it at some point in the future. So it makes sense to go ahead and plan for that and do that. I think we get a greater bang for the buck, it's more efficient, it's done with one CM at risk, we're not utilizing the property there on Greenville, which we could utilize for something else at some point. So if we do it out of capital projects, I would, I mean, we'll bring back a recommendation, but I feel pretty confident it will be to go ahead and go forward with 2 stories, unless I hear differently. And I know that Mr. Monroe, you've got a concern about growth in Lake Highlands, and we're looking at that, we're looking at numbers, we're looking at programs, we're looking at a lot of different things in terms of Lake Highlands.
I was just going to say, I have a high level of urgency for the professional development space. Right now, with just the size of our district, and the way we're having to provide professional development when we have district-wide events, we have to utilize campuses, our libraries, and they, while it works, the kind of professional development that we want to offer, it's not conducive to that. So to have places that could hold more staff members so that we wouldn't have to split people up and ask so many people to present, that would be really, really beneficial. And I think it would allow us a lot more opportunity to provide professional development in different ways. Because right now, particularly at the elementary level, we can't do district-wide day in one day in most cases. We have to split it into 2. A large part is due to space.
So, Pam, thinking about that, you know, you have in other districts, professional development facilities like the Sockolo Center in Plano ISD. I mean, that's a facility that we don't have. Is that correct? It's not provided by our PDC or, you know, so we're having to do that at the campuses. So telepresence is impacted, teleconferencing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely would help.
But if we could spend, you know, that's part of why we did the renovations to the PDC was in an effort to try to avoid spending $20 million on a professional development center. So if we can invest $4 million here plus the, you know, the $1.2 million that we invested over at the PDC and avoid $20 million worth of expenditure, I think that would be money well spent.
Okay, thank you for that.
And one other thing I think that just want to mention, that, you know, we heard this from principals too, if we go forward with increasing the amount of technology we're going to put out, what we heard loud and clear is that we need to prepare teachers for those things. We can't just put all these devices out there without training them on how to use it, incorporating it into their day. So the need for additional professional development will go up. And then we will be pressed on space with that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem thoughtful to me to build a 1-story structure that is such limited in use when a fairly small investment could make that so much more user friendly, but user available to our community and be thoughtful about our down the road needs.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I want to be clear on something. The bump to 12 million isn't finishing out that space, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, you know, again, we're asking for a hard dollar figure before we've designed anything, guys. So we really need an opportunity to design it, to give you a more specific number. You know, it's possible that we could finish out the entire thing for less than that. It's possible, but I need to turn the architects loose with some detail, a little bit of direction, and let them run. And they're anxious to do that.
Right.
But we just got to give them that direction.
Tony, if you just can't answer because we don't have the demographic report, that's fine. But just your opinion, are you expecting the need to do a classroom addition project in Lake Highlands similar to what we've done over the last few years, or are you thinking that we're gonna be able to manage with some moving of central programs and things like that?
I think that we are approaching our build out in Lake Highlands. You know, and I'll use a couple of examples. White Rock Elementary, we added 6 classrooms at White Rock, and how big is too big? And that was a conversation when we were looking at each of those schools. You've only got 1 or 2 campuses that additional construction would even make sense. I'm not going to mention any, because I don't want to alarm anyone, but you know, there's only a couple that would even be a possibility. I mean, your White Rock, your capacity number is like 980. Wallace, your capacity number is like 980 there. So, you know, I think you've reached kind of critical mass there, and because the community was not, you know, 2 years ago that everybody was up in arms that we were going to have these classrooms, and it was too big. And now it's not big enough, and so I don't see that. I mean, I think there's some other options that we need to explore to try to alleviate that issue. And then I think if you look at the demographer's report and their projection over the next couple of years, I know that some folks would scoff at this, but what they're saying is that cohort is going to level off. And we've got a scoffer right there, but because he lives in it, I know. But I mean, I'm just saying that's just what the demographer says, that cohort is going to level off. And so, you know, I think the January data will be very telling when they give us that full-blown demographic review. It's bigger than just the update, and they can tell us, you know, what we're looking at within those communities, and then we've got to decide, you know, how big do you make White Rock Elementary School? I mean, do you make it a 1,200 student school?
I'm not suggesting that White Rock in itself adding on is the answer. I'm just saying, you know, I expect that number, just, you know, we'll see what it comes out to, but today that number's at 925. If you take away the overflow, I expect that number probably 2 years from now to be 1050. Just knowing what the 5th and 6th grade classes look like and what the preschool mamas already have registered in their database for 3 and 4 year olds coming into kindergarten. And you know, I mean, the 5th grade class right now there is 83 kids. This year's kindergarten class was 150, but that's before you take into what. And so there's just a big inequity in those classes rolling out and what's coming out. So again, we don't have to solve that tonight. We'll get there down the road, but it's.
But your point is the capital projects money.
And there's going to be some, you know, that number's going up. And you know, if the demographer says it's not, then I'll give him the data to back it up. But that number is going up, and we're going to have a discussion about where all those kids are.
And that's a complex discussion.
It is.
More than a facilities discussion. So, point taken, definitely. But let's take a look. We've heard perspectives here tonight. You all will go back and from this, bring us a recommendation at the November general meeting. That would be great.
So, Ms. Captain, that recommendation, would it be in the form of a construction manager at risk?
Yes.
Recommendation?
Yes.
A contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? That will be all.
That's what I'll recommend.
What
I think
I'm
based on the feedback.
asking them to do is go back and take all the data points that they've heard from us tonight and come back with a recommendation at the first meeting of the month with a supporting rationale.
If it's helpful, because you guys can't make that decision tonight, but that, based on what I've heard, that will be the recommendation that I bring back. Is CM at risk in November for a two-school.
And what we could also do that same night, and maybe this will help Mr. Bono and his concern with Lake Highlands, you're going to also get the information on the comprehensive annual financial report. And so we'll be able to talk about some of the items that are within fund balance and where we have some capacity to be able to accommodate some additional construction if necessary. So that might help your concern. and, be able to have that additional capacity so that, next year or the year after that or whatever point in time, if we do need to do something there, we would have it. This doesn't preclude us from doing that.
All right, well, at this point, then we will go into closed session in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.07, personnel matters, superintendent's priority goals, status update. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Outstanding meeting. Thank you for your preparation and
About the
content.
closed meeting, going on closed meeting. You know, this is why is that going on to? Well, it's. So it has nothing to do with that, it's just like about none of this, it's something separate. Specifically, it's talking about the superintendent's.
You bet.
Your pageant
Per person. Oh, okay, great, yes, that's what somebody was asking me about that, why this is going on closed session. So then, this will be closed session, reconvene.
They always have to reconvene.
Okay. And then, is that it?
That's kind of,
Yeah, right.
in case something else
Just
comes
to
up.
say, right, okay, thank you.
That's the problem.